In this ninja world, I'm the one in charge now. Uzumaki Naraku. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Minato's Backup Plan. The reason why Naraku thinks he is the most failed Hokage is because as the shadow of a village and the top leader of the village, he cannot fully control the power of the village. He also needs the dark tissue at his roots to stabilize his position as Hokage. Haha. Naru looked down on him in her heart. After the arrival of the third generation, this matter came to an end. As for how to deal with this matter between the third generation and Danzo, Naraku didn't know and didn't want to know clearly. He returned directly to Konoha Hospital, but before leaving, he glanced at Zissou and vaguely guessed something. Naraku felt that if the third generation could arrive in such a short time, someone should have informed him immediately. Thinking of this, he thought of Shisu's multiple spy identities. Naraku shook his head secretly. Shisu, you must be very tired from living like this. If you have a chance, let me help you change your way of living. Hiruzen, today I just want to talk to Uzumaki Naraku about something. Do you want to directly destroy the route with such a large formation? Danzo said. There was no trace of guilt in his tone. On the contrary, he was still confident, and even preemptive strike, blaming 3 generations. Humph. At this, the third generation snorted. Naraku is the younger brother of the 4th generation and a relative of the hero. I will never allow anyone to harm him in the village. The tone was firm without any hesitation. People who didn't know might really think that the third generation was a good Hokage and a good leader. But the fact is that Sandai, the person who keeps saying that he wants to protect the hero's relatives, actually imprisons the hero's son in disguise. Haha, what a huge irony. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, are extremely hypocritical. Hearing this, Danzo sneered and said nothing more. Then Sandai left with the Anbu people. Danzo stared at the third generation's back with cold eyes, an unwilling killing intent gathering in his heart. Hiruzen, the position of Hokage must be mine. The other side. After leaving there, Naraku quickly returned to the hospital. Suddenly, he frowned slightly as he just walked into the corridor, but then relaxed. Is it finally here? Naraku walked into his room as if nothing was wrong, but the moment he opened the door, his eyes turned scarlet and 3 black Magatama slowly rotated. Uzumaki Naraku, long time no see. Yes! Exclamation mark. Long time no see, Chief Fugaku. Yes. Standing in front of him at this time was the leader of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku. Naraku didn't seem to be surprised by his appearance, but Fugaku showed an expression of disbelief after seeing Naraku's pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan. It's already 3 Magatama. Fugaku was deeply surprised, but he also realized how terrifying Uzumaki Naraku's talent was. You must know that even the most outstanding genius of their Uchiha clan in recent years, Uchiha Shisu, only mastered the Sharingan of San Magatama when he was a teenager. Among the entire Uchiha clan, his eldest son, Uchiha Itachi's talent was comparable to Naraku's. A hint of unnoticeable fear flashed in Fugaku's eyes, but he was immediately relieved after thinking of Naraku's identity. Clan Chief Fugaku came to see me for something, Naraku said calmly, closing his eyes at the same time. When he opened his eyes again, he had returned to normal. The reason why he opened the Sharingan just now was to shock Fugaku. After all, the Uchiha clan is a proud race, and the power they trust most is their strongest power, which is a Sharingan. Clearly, his move was successful. In the Uchiha clan, although the 3 Magatama Sharingan is not common, there are still more than a dozen people who have it. However, it is abnormal for this level of Sharingan to appear on an outsider, not to mention that this person is still a human. A 7-year-old child. The most important thing is that this person can also control the Sharingan perfectly, without any side effects. Actually, it's nothing. I just asked Minato to take care of you, Fugaku said, shaking his head, but Minato might not have thought that his brother would grow up so fast and already have the strength of a jounin at a young age. Fugaku said with a smile. No, Itachi is your child, right? He is also very good. He is now famous throughout the Anbu. It is said that the Uchiha clan has produced an incredible genius. Fugaku's expression changed immediately after hearing this. Judging from the current situation of the Uchiha clan, being too famous is not a good thing. Naraku. Fugaku's tone became serious. You have also seen the current situation in the village. Whether it is Danzo or the third generation, they will not want Kushina to wake up safely. If Kushina wakes up and learns that her child is controlled by the third generation, what do you think she will do? Naraku had no expression on his face when he heard these words. In fact, he knew what Fugaku said, so he was so eager to improve his strength. Only strength can protect everything he cares about. The Yondaime and I were good friends when we were alive, and Kushina was also a close friend of Kane. If that day comes, and my Uchiha clan is needed, we will not stand idly by. Fugaku said firmly, as if he had made some kind of decision. Naraku was stunned when he heard this. He knew the relationship between Minato and Fugaku. They had fought side by side during the Third Ninja War, and were comrades who could back to back point. But now that Minato has passed away, even if the friendship between them is as valuable as gold, Naraku doesn't believe that Fugaku can reach this level. He looked at Fugaku with suspicion. After all, he was from the Uchiha clan. Kushina and Naruto were both Jinchuriki now, and the Sharingan was the nemesis of the tailed beasts. He didn't want to fall into the trap of a tiger. Forehead. Seeing Naraku's reaction, Fugaku knew that his words were a bit extreme. After hesitating for a long time, he took out something from his arms, which was a special kunai point. After seeing this kunai, Naraku was slightly startled. The technique engraved on the kunai was very familiar to him. It was the technique of Flying Thunder God. This kunai was given to me by the 4th generation the day before Kushina gave birth. The 4th generation seemed to have noticed something that day. He told me a lot of things. He said that, when you grow up, he will give you this kunai. After saying that, he handed the kunai to Naraku. After hesitating for a moment, Naraku reached out to take the kunai. At this time, he had secretly opened Kaguya's inner eye. He felt a special sealing technique on this kunai, and there was also a familiar chakra fluctuation. This is the backup plan left by brother Minato. Naraku murmured. Then he unsealed the kunai in front of Fugaku. Chapter 52 Investigation. The next day, two familiar figures appeared outside Konoha village. They were Naraku and Yamato. After a night's rest, they set out to perform their mission again. But fortunately, this time they were performing a simple investigation mission, and they were just assisting. Naraku felt that this mission should be relatively simple, but when he arrived at the border of the Land of Fire, he didn't think so. Fire Nation Frontier Guard Towers stand tall, and there are 2 ninjas in each guard tower who are always on guard. Narashikamichi frowned slightly as he looked at the information in his hand. Sir, there have been many casualties at the border, where country and wave country meet our country. They are already putting pressure on us, asking us to give them an explanation. A ninja knelt on one knee and faced the deer. Tao said, "It's really troublesome." Shideo rubbed his swollen head. He didn't know if it was because of his age, but his headache was getting more and more serious. Narashikamichi, a ninja who was the same generation as the 3rd generation, should be Shikamaru's grandfather based on seniority, and he was solely responsible for guarding the border. Ever since the 4th generation was killed in battle, there has been almost no peace here on the border. Either people died here for no reason today, or a ninja from a certain ninja village will come to test it tomorrow. Especially recently, this situation has become even worse. Even some small nearby countries dare to test Konoha. Shikamichi knew this was because there was a cage-level strong man in the village who became a rebel ninja. Have the reinforcement sent by the village not arrived yet? Shideo asked. Not yet. The last summons said it would arrive tomorrow at the latest. Tomorrow. That's still too late. As for the Kingdom of Waves and the Kingdom of Tang, haha, let me give them an explanation. Then I will go over and give them an explanation in person. A sneer appeared on Shikamichi's old face. In fact, he knew very well that if it was just the Kingdom of You and the Kingdom of Waves, even if they were lent 10 courages, they would not dare to do this to Konoha. Or this was just the cloud behind them. It's just a prank now. If such a situation had happened before, Shikamachi would definitely suggest that the Hokage start a war with Kumogakuya directly, but now, forget it. Konoha today does not have that strength point. He took two people to the country of waves, where they met the daimyo of the country of waves, and had a heated exchange of words. Finally, after Shikamachi promised that the problem would be solved and the murderer found within 3 days, the country of waves temporarily compromised. The subsequent Tang country did the same thing. Haha, I didn't expect that Konoha would have such a day. You know, Kuna's daimyo was a fat man who looked to be in his 40s at this time. He was sneering. The next moment, a sturdy figure stood in front of him. Ninja-sama. The daimyo's attitude immediately became respectful after seeing the visitor with short white hair and dark skin in sharp contrast. Kiryu looked at the daimyo in front of him with a smile, enjoying the feeling of being respected. The line of fire, Konoha, sooner or later will be my territory. Kumogakuya, Ludeo, on the other side, returned to the camp with a bad expression. After talking with the two daimyo of Wave Country and Yuno Country, Shikamachi confirmed one thing, that is, Kumogakuya could no longer hold back. This is not good news for Konoha today. Forget it, let's leave this kind of thing to Hiruzen. Shikado shook his head and then asked someone to pass the news to the village. The next day, Naraku and Yamato arrived here. As soon as they arrived, there he was brought to Nara Shikamachi, Uzumaki, Naraku, Tenzo. He's Kushina's younger brother, but, at this age, Shikamachi estimated that the two of them together may be less than 20 years old, and he had some doubts about the strength of Naraku and others. After all, Nara Shikamachi has not returned to the village for a long time, and Naraku is also relatively low-key, so it is normal for Shikamachi to not know his strength. Let's try it first and then talk. Although he is a little worried, he currently has too few manpower and cannot spare anyone to deal with this matter. He has no choice but to leave it to Naraku and the others. After all, he is a member of Anbu, and even if his strength is different, it is not much different. He thought in his heart, and then told the story about the unexplained death of someone on the border between Wave Country and U Country. As for compromising to the two daimyo, he didn't say anything about such shameless things. He just said that Naraku and the others would investigate the reason and then report it to him. Sunday is a scammer. He promised to assist, but now he has to execute it alone. Naraku cursed in his mind after walking out of the camp point. Although he was extremely reluctant, he had already arrived here, and he didn't want to turn around and leave, so he could only continue to perform the mission. People died for no reason, and they were still on the border between the Kingdom of Waves, the Kingdom of Tang, and the Kingdom of Fire. Naraku recalled the content of the mission carefully, and faintly noticed something was wrong. Then he and Yamato first came to the border of the country of waves, where the unexplained death was. The traces here seemed to have been cleaned up by special personnel. The two of them carefully explored here, and found nothing unusual. Kagura's eyes open. After a slight hesitation, Naraku opened Kagura's inner eye, and he began to carefully examine the energy changes nearby to see if he could find any clues, but maybe because it took too long, he didn't find anything. He just felt that the thunder attribute chakra was relatively strong nearby. Naraku shook his head slightly, and without thinking much about it, he called Yamato and left together. In a tavern in the country of waves, the two people dressed up in disguise came to this tavern to see if they could get some useful information here. But it was obvious that they were overthinking it. After a whole morning, they didn't get any useful information here. Naraku frowned slightly, thinking carefully about the unexplained death of people on the border. Although this ninja world is very cruel, and deaths often occur, the main thing is the death of people on the border is a bit strange. The country of waves, the country of soup. Could it be? Suddenly, Naraku seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes lit up. In order to verify his conjecture, he ran to the street and bought a simple world map. On the map, the country of fire is almost in the center of the world, while the country of waves and the country of you are to the northeast of the country of fire. Going forward, it will be the kingdom of thunder and the kingdom of water. Thunder country, Cloud Ninja. It seems like they are behind the scenes, Naraku thought to himself. The Kingdom of Thunder is the country with the most powerful military power in Naruto, but Naraku feels that the Kumo ninjas in the Kingdom of Thunder are a group of unreasonable and bandit-like characters. Chapter 53 Naraku's Plan. Naraku remembered that in the original work, after the Third Ninja War, Kumo ninja secretly tried to harm Konoha more than once. Didn't Niji's father, Hyuga Hisashi, die in the Kumo ninjas conspiracy? After thinking about this, Naraku immediately had a plan in his mind. Late at night, the country of waves, Damming Mansion. Although it is only a small country, it is the top leader of the country after all, and there are still several ninja guards here. Suddenly, a masked figure rushed over. Who is this person? Soon a guard discovered this person. After a loud shout, 2 or 3 figures chased him in an instant. Not bad, Yamato. Just after those people left, Naraku's figure appeared here. It was Yamato who had just lured away those guards. In fact, the strongest of those guards were only Chunin. If it wasn't too troublesome, Naraku would have wanted to just break in. Then, "It's you next, Lord Daimyo," Naraku murmured, and then he flashed into a room. "You are?" The commotion outside had already woken up the Daimyo. In fact, due to some things, he had not slept well in the past few days. "Lord Daimyo, why are you so forgetful? Don't you remember what you promised us Kumo ninja before?" "Kumo ninja?" A trace of fear flashed across the Daimyo's face. Then he said with a trembling voice, "Ninja-sama, please don't worry, I will definitely do as you say, but the fire country is supported by Konoha after all." Boom. The Daimyo's body fell to the ground, and Naraku reached out to help him to the bed. "Have a good sleep, Daimyo-sama." Naraku then left here. The Daimyo was just an ordinary person and Naraku had no difficulty using Jinjutsu on him. After leaving here, Naraku came to the place agreed with Yamato. After a while, Yamato also came here. Yamato's strength has also reached the Chunin level, which is almost the same as those of the guards. In addition, the other party was worried about the safety of the Daimyo and just stopped chasing after a while, so Yamato completed the task easily. "Captain, what should we do next?" Yamato asked Naraku. "How to do it?" The corners of Naraku's lips raised slightly. "Let's go to the Kingdom of Tang." He had just learned from the mouth of the Daimyo of Yuno country that the Kumo ninja was behind this incident of dead people at the border. Naraku felt that they wanted to use this to disrupt the border guards and do other things. Otherwise, it is just the country of Wave and the country of Yu. These two small countries cannot shake Konoha at all. The deadline for this task is 3 days, and Naraku feels that, if everything goes well, it will be completely solved by tomorrow at the latest point, because according to what the Daimyo said, the ninja sent by the Cloud Ninja was currently living in the Daimyo mansion in the country of Yu. The country of Yu and the country of Waves were close to each other. Naraku and Yamato traveled all night, and arrived at the country of Yu early the next morning. After changing into Konoha and Bu costumes, the two of them rushed directly towards the Damming Palace in Yuno country. Naraku's plan is very simple. Find the person sent by Yun Ninja, and kill him directly. The mission will be over. As for how Yun Ninja will react, and what decision Konoha will make, these are all related to Naraku. It doesn't matter anymore. The two of them moved very quickly and soon arrived at the Damming Mansion. Naraku opened Kagura's inner eye, and instantly felt several waves of chakra, most of which were at the Chunin level, with only one relatively powerful aura. It seems like it's here, Naraku thought to himself, then he no longer hesitated. After looking at each other, the two of them stood swaggeringly in the center of the Damming Mansion. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" The guard leader Keiji was the first to notice the two of them, stepped forward and shouted loudly. "We are ninjas from Konoha, responsible for investigating the unexplained deaths of people on the border," Naraku said, his tone cold and without any emotion. "Konoha's ninja." Corgi paused upon hearing this. He was just a Chunin, and he could not provoke such a behemoth as Konoha. "Oh, Konoha, why, you are ready to give us an explanation from the Kingdom of Yu." The Daimyo of the Kingdom of Yu dragged his fat body here and said in a bad tone. Naraku turned around after hearing the words. Although the Daimyo's tone was extremely unkind and his face was cold, Naraku still noticed that the Daimyo's eyes trembled twice after seeing him for the first time. "It's Just pretentious. Naraku knew clearly in his heart that, whether it was the daimyo of Wave Country or the daimyo of View Country in front of them, they were still very afraid of Konoha in their hearts. Now a large part of the reason why they are doing this is because of the threat from the Kumo ninja. What, daimyo-sama, do you want to hinder Konoha's mission? Naraku said calmly, over there. Although Naraku was talking to the daimyo on the surface, in fact his Kaguya's inner eye remained open, and at this time he had already locked onto the target. It's in this famous mansion. Obstruction. How could I hinder you from performing your mission? The daimyo here said hurriedly, trying to defend himself. Swish. But at this time, Naraku had no time to listen to his nonsense. Holding a long knife, Naraku disappeared in a flashpoint. The next moment, his figure appeared not far away, and in front of him was a middle-aged man dressed as a servant. Guy. The long knife tore through the air and struck hard at the middle-aged man. King. The sound of weapons clashing reached everyone's ears, and they saw that the servant had disappeared and was replaced by a strong white-haired man. It was Kuru. It was actually discovered, Kuru said with a surprised expression at this time. It was already unexpected for Naraku and the others to appear here at this time, but now they discovered their disguise for the first time. Kuru looked at the young Naraku in front of him with a stern look in his eyes. To have such strength at such a young age, he will definitely be the enemy of Kumo ninja when he grows up, Kuru thought secretly in his heart. Crack, crack. Suddenly, a blue arc of electricity appeared on the long knife in his hand, and the blue arc of electricity wandered on the blade like a small snake. The next moment, Kuru raised his sword and attacked Naraku at high speed. As expected of a Kumo ninja, you guys have used this thunder attribute chakra very well. Invisible wind chakra instantly wrapped around the entire blade, and the air around the blade instantly fluctuated. But you don't know Fenkeli. Facing Kuru's offensive, Naraku was not afraid at all and directly raised his sword to fight with the opponent. Chapter 54 Mastering the Secret Technique of Thunder Escape. Keng. Keng. The sound of blades clashing kept coming, and sparks flashed in the air. Where did this little brat come from to be so strong? Looking at the thin Naraku standing in front of him, Kuru's expression changed slightly. Although they had only fought for a few rounds, he had already seen that Naraku's strength was not weaker than his own. The thunder escape sword technique that he was originally good at was also restrained by his wind escape. Let's get out of here first, Kuru, who observed the situation around him, thought to himself. Then he held the knife in both hands, and after colliding with Naraku again, a blue arc suddenly appeared all over his body, and then he turned around and retreated in the other direction at high speed. Haha, I can't let you go like this. Naraku murmured. Go and report the situation here to Senior Shikado, and leave this person to me. He said something to Yamato, and then chased Kuru very quickly in the direction where he left. Light blue chakra instantly filled his body. Under Naraku's full burst, his speed was no worse than Kuru at this time. Looking at the blue arcs on Kuru's body, Naraku guessed that he should be using a trick similar to that of the fourth Reikage, which uses thunder attribute chakra to stimulate the cells in the body to achieve the effect of increasing speed. It's just that it's obvious that Kuru's skills are not yet up to par, otherwise Naraku would be the one running away now. Naraku has not mastered the ninjutsu to increase speed, but he also has his own method, which is chakra. Just like now, he has attached chakra to all parts of his body. In this state, his speed and strength will be improved, but the disadvantage is that it will consume a certain amount of chakra. But this was nothing to Naraku, who had a huge amount of chakra. The two of them ran away and gave chase, and soon came to a deserted wilderness. I'm very curious about the secret technique of lightning escape in U9 village, Naraku murmured, and then he opened his Sharingan. With scholar eyes exuding a mysterious aura, Naraku stared at Kuru in front of him. At this time, he could see the chakra meridians on the other person's body. He also had a panoramic view of the movement trajectory of the opponent's special thunder attribute chakra. ZHI. ZHI. Suddenly blue arcs flashed on Naraku's body. Under Naraku's control, these blue arcs spread all over his body in an orderly manner. At this moment, Naraku felt that his body was much lighter, his legs kicked off the ground, and his figure rushed forward like a thunder shadow. Haha. Kuru was breathing heavily in front of him. He did not fully master this special lightning escape secret technique, so he consumed a lot of chakra every time he used it. By now, most of the chakra in his body has been consumed. Damn brat, if you're looking for death, don't blame me. Kiryu cursed in his heart, and then he stopped and threw a kunai covered with detonating talismans towards the back clang. Naraku had already noticed this, and with a slight flick of his right arm, he fired a shuriken and intercepted the opponent's kunai point boom. The next moment, the detonating talisman on the kunai exploded instantly, and a huge pit appeared in front of Naraku. It's time to end it. Crack. Crack. In an instant, the blue light on Naraku's body surged, and dense blowups surrounded him. Then Naraku kicked the ground with both feet and exerted force. The next moment, his figure disappeared directly, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Kiryu. How is it possible that you secretly learned from the secretary of Union Village? At this time, Kiryu saw the dazzling blue light on Naraku's body. He was very familiar with that kind of light, which was exactly the same as the thunder on his body. Naraku didn't reply to this. Union Village, a village that often misses other people's blood inheritance, actually had the nerve to say that others secretly learned their secret techniques. No, those eyes. Suddenly, Kiryu noticed Naraku's scarlet eyes, and his pupils shrank instantly, just when he was about to say something. What? The next moment, Kiryu suddenly covered his throat and let out a cry of pain. At this time, he felt that there was a big tree behind him, and many trunks stretched out from the tree and wrapped around his neck, hanging him up. Tree binding technique. A special Jinjutsu. Naraku is more powerful when using Sharingan. It's over. Call out. A shuriken was thrown towards Kiryu, while Naraku's hands quickly formed seals. Shuriken. Shadow clone jutsu. Call out. Phew. In an instant, hundreds of shurikens rushed towards Kiryu. ZHI. At this moment, a dazzling blue light burst out from Kiryu's body. Under the stimulation of thunder and lightning, he broke free from the shackles of the illusion. Without any time to hesitate, he raised the knife across his chest and swung out the sword. Clang, clang, clang. Blue sword shadows flashed continuously, and finally he blocked the shuriken attack. Thunder escape. Thunder. Suddenly Kiryu shouted, and dense thunder and lightning focused on the long knife in his hand, and then the long knife pointed at Naraku in front. Point boom. A blue thunderbolt fell from the sky and struck Naraku hard. Oh, there is such a move. The blue light on Naraku suddenly swelled up, and he quickly dodged the lightning attack. The next moment, his figure appeared next to Kiryu. The long knife in his hand shone with a dazzling silver light in the sun. Naraku swung out the knife and struck at Kiryu like it was tearing the air. Clang. The long knife was blocked, and then the two started an extremely fierce battle. Although Naraku has not specifically learned sword skills, with the Sharingan activated, he can not only predict Kiryu's movements, but also perfectly copy the opponent's sword skills. So now he becomes more and more courageous as he fights on the field. With the passage of time, the two people who were originally evenly matched now have a completely one-sided situation. At this time, Kiryu was unable to resist Naraku's offensive as his chakra was consumed. ZHI. Blue arcs flashed on the field, and the long knife in Naraku's hand was now also filled with lightning. Naraku, who possesses a Sharingan, perfectly copied and mastered Kiryu's secret technique of lightning escape. But it's just a preliminary grasp, basically the same as the Kiryu in front of me. However, Naraku believes that with his own talent, he will be able to completely master this special thunder escape secret technique in Union Village. Clang. After the two collided again on the field, Kiryu's figure continued to retreat. In fact, normally speaking, as an adult, his strength and speed should be higher than Naraku. The reason why this happens is because he consumes too much chakra. As for Naraku, the chakra in his body has been in an explosive state from beginning to end, but so far he has not even consumed half of it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. Half a year. Humiliated Deru. Fire escape, fire dragon flame bullet. In the wilderness, Naraku quickly formed seals with his hands and released a powerful fire escape ninjutsu. Crimson flames like lava spurted out from his mouth, and the crimson flames formed a firebomb with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Boom. The firebombs continued to rush forward. Haha. Kuru, who was breathing heavily, noticed the firebombs speeding towards him, and his expression changed instantly. Just when he was about to make a move, a pair of scarlet eyes appeared in his sight. Magic, the art of shackles. The moment Naraku finished speaking, Kuru's frightened eyes suddenly turned painful. He only felt as if something had penetrated his limbs, causing tremendous pain. Boom. At this moment, the firebomb had hit him hard. What? There was a painful roar, but soon there was no movement point. After a while, the burning flame was extinguished, and a charred body appeared on the field. It was Kuru. Naraku then simply disposed of the body, and left here. He didn't have any good impression of Union himself. He was just a spy, so he would kill him if he wanted to. Another point is that Naraku doesn't want the secret of his Sharingan to be exposed, at least not yet. Damning Mansion in Tang Country. At this time, Shikamachi had already arrived here with several people. Why did the murderer appear in Damning Mansion? Is it your country of view that is framing our Konoha? A middle-aged ninja standing next to Shikamachi spoke, his tone serious and hostile. The fat daimyo from the Kingdom of View was sweating profusely. If it wasn't for Kumogaku's persecution, how could he have chosen to offend Konoha? Master Shikamachi, we are in the country of you. The daimyo turned to Shikamachi and said a lot of explanations. Lord Daimyo, Shikamachi spoke at this moment. His tone was cold and emotionless. We also believe that Uchiha has nothing to do with this matter, but after all, the murderer was found here. Naraku, who had just returned here, saw Shikamachi arguing with the daimyo. Naraku knew that if it was Konoha in the past, if it encountered such an incident, it would definitely handle it with strong methods. Now, after all, this time is different from the past. In the end, under Shikamachi's negotiation, Wave Country and U Country each made certain compensation to Konoha. In this way, Naraku once again completed a mission brilliantly. However, this time Naraku did not return to the village after completing the mission. It was the third generation who ordered him and Yamato to stay at the border. The reason was that the border had been unstable recently. The fact is, just as the third generation said, after the Cloud Hidden village learned of Kuru's death, the fourth generation Raikage was extremely angry. However, because what Kuru did was inherently disgraceful, he could not take revenge openly. It was impossible for him to just swallow this breath. In the next 6 months, Union Village sent several teams to cause trouble at the border of the country of fire, and Naraku's job was to stop them, and half a year passed in a flash. At the border of the fire country, Thunder escape. Thank you for the wave. A young man with short white hair shouted loudly, and then under his control, a stream of water mixed with thunder and lightning was drawn forward, like a thunder whip. Wind escape. Big breakthrough. A violent gust of wind appeared, and the gust of wind roared past, directly blowing away the water flow. Haha, Daru, you still can't do it. A mocking voice came, and it was Naraku who spoke. At this time, he was wearing a white cat face mask, and there was a hint of playfulness in his exposed eyes. Half a year has passed, and Naraku has not changed much, except that he is a little taller at this time. There were 3 figures opposite Naraku, and they were also wearing masks. Humph. The shortest one among them snorted and said coldly, Uzumaki Naraku, don't be too arrogant, because arrogance comes with a price. The person who spoke was none other than Daru, whom Naraku was talking about. He and the 2 people next to him were the team sent by the Raikage to harass the Konoha border. Thunder release. Black spot chap. At this moment, Daru roared angrily, and black thunder flashed around him. Crack. Crack. The dense thunder and lightning made roaring sounds, and then under Daru's control, these black thunder and lightning gradually turned into the shape of a black panther. Facing this move, Naraku's expression became cautious. Black lightning is rare in the ninja world, and Naraku knew that only the 3rd generation Raikage and Daru in front of him could use this move. The next moment, the Black Panther transformed from thunder and lightning swooped towards Naraku. Spiral pills. Just when the Black Panther was about to land on Naraku, a light blue energy ball spun rapidly in his right hand. It was Naruto's future signature ninjutsu, the Rasengan point. Naraku then pressed the Rasengan directly onto the Black Panther. Although the power of the Black Lightning is not bad, the Rasengan is not bad either, plus the Wind Clay. Eventually the two cancel each other out. Hateful. Daru cursed secretly when he saw this, and just when he was about to attack again, a voice stopped him. That's enough, Daru. At this moment, the man next to Daru spoke. Lord Raikage has sent us a message, asking us to return to Cloud Hidden Village immediately. Me. Daru's expression changed upon hearing this, and he wanted to say something. Do you want to disobey the Raikage-sama's orders? Daru nodded with a low expression. I understand. Then, he turned to look at Naraku. Uzumaki Naraku, one day I will kill you to avenge my uncle. Revenge. Hearing this, the corners of Naraku's mouth curled up slightly, and then he stepped forward. Chakra exploded instantly, and a fierce aura emanated from him. If it weren't for the village's order, the three of you would have died long ago. Naraku said in a cold tone. Not long after he was stationed at the border, the third generation gave him an order not to kill the ninjas he encountered in Hidden Cloud Village. Although he sneered at such an order in his heart, you can't kill others if others want to kill you. What kind of bullshit is this? However, Naraku thought that Kushina and Naruto finally chose to compromise. It was precisely because of this that Daru and the others were able to survive until now. Otherwise, even if the three of them came together, Naraku would be sure to deal with them. As for the uncle Daru mentioned, it was Kuru whom he killed half a year ago. Daru on the opposite side felt a sense of shame when he heard such words, but there was nothing he could do if he was not as strong as others. In the end, he left here in despair. When Naraku here was about to return to the camp, his expression changed instantly, and then he formed a special mark without any hesitation. Reverse channeling. Boom. His body turned into a puff of smoke. Chapter 56. Long time no see. Aunt Zine. Konoha Village, in a secluded, dark building point. This is the base camp of Konoha's darkness and roots today. A special guest is welcomed here, the highest leader of Konoha Village, the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Point after Danzo and the others conspired here for a long time, the third generation left here. Point after that, Danzo suddenly summoned all the root staff, and gave them the same mission. Point the content of the mission is to go to Konoha Hospital and take away a person. Point this person is the nine-tailed Jinchuriki of the previous generation, the wife of the fourth Hokage, Uzumaki Kushina. Konoha Hospital. Standing in a corridor of the hospital was a beautiful figure with red hair full of blood, proving her identity as Kushina Uzumaki, who had been in a coma for nearly 3 years at this time. There were two figures standing beside her, a young man with the same red hair, and a fiery red toad. Point it was Naraku and Todian. But Naraku was just a shadow clone at this time. It seems like you've grown up, Naraku. Kushina murmured. As members of the Uzumaki clan, Kushina is no worse than Naraku, and is even stronger than the latter now. Just standing here, she can feel various formations around her. Most of these were given to Naraku before. Looking at the extremely familiar face of the shadow clone, Kushina reached out and wanted to touch it, but she stopped the next moment because she knew that what she saw in front of her was just the shadow clone. Naraku, where did Naruto go? At this moment, Kushina asked. Although her expression was calm now, even Todian could hear how nervous her trembling tone was. Sister. The shadow clone looked embarrassed just when he was about to say something. Point aha. Suddenly, several figures wearing masks in front of several people. You and Blue? No, it's a root. Kushina's face changed when she saw a few people. Like Minato, he didn't have any good impression of the roots. Even when Minato first took the position of Hokage, the two of them discussed that they would find a way to cancel the roots in the future. What are you doing here? Kushina said in a cold tone. When she thought of Minato, Kushina felt an indescribable discomfort in her heart. Although in reality it had been nearly 3 years since Minato's death, to Kushina, who had been in a coma, it was as if Minato had just died. Same point, she didn't even see Minato before she fell into coma, and she just learned about Minato's death from the shadow clone's mouth. Faced with Kushina's question, no one from the root staff responded, but there was a trace of hesitation in their eyes when they looked at Kushina. Despair, despair, despair. At this moment, there was a crisp sound of footsteps in the silent corridor, and at the same time, the people at the root moved to both sides of the corridor to make way. His eyes were fierce and emotionless, and half of his body was wrapped in white bandages. The person who came was none other than the leader of the roots, Shimura Danzo, sister. The moment he saw the person coming, the shadow branch took a step forward and stood in front of Kushina, and at the same time, motioned for Kushina to move back. The shadow clone also has Naraku's thoughts. No matter what Danzo does here, he will not agree to it. I wonder what Elder Danzo wants from me. The shadow clone said coldly. He would never let Kushina get hurt again. Array open. Without waiting for Danzo to reply, the shadow clone directly activated the formations hidden around him. In just a moment, the distance between Danzo, Genb, and Kushina and the others became farther and farther. It is a special isolation formation that can quickly distance people from each other. Not only that, but just when Danzo and the others reacted and were about to take action, a transparent light curtain appeared in front of them. Some root members tried to pass through the light curtain, but were stopped directly. Naraku, you. Kushina, who was behind the shadow clone, saw this scene and felt happy and sad at the same time. It seems you must have suffered a lot, Kushina whispered softly, her eyes full of distress at this time. The shadow clone did not notice Kushina's abnormal mood. At this time, he focused on Danzo and the roots. Although the formation now trapped them, Naraku knew that it was only temporary. Not to mention the root members who each had the strength of a Jounin. It was difficult for even Danzo to control him with this formation. HMPH. Uzumaki Naraku, I really don't know what to say. The fact was not beyond his expectation. Danzo inside the formation snorted coldly, and then he made several marks with one hand. Wind. Escape. Beast wave palm. A large amount of wind attribute chakra was concentrated on his hand, and then Danzo stretched out his right hand and waved violently. Wow. A violent hurricane appeared instantly, and the transparent light curtain only lasted for a moment before it clicked and shattered like glass. Boom. The strong wind blew, and the formation arranged by Naraku was cracked. There is no surprise for this shadow clone. Even though Danzo's strength has declined, he is still a strong shadow level warrior. It would be strange if these formations can really trap him. Uzumaki Naraku attacked this elder without any reason. He will be arrested immediately. Anyone who obstructs him will also be arrested, Danzo said in a cold tone. Haha, Elder Danzo is really good at confusing right and wrong. The shadow clone looked a little ugly. He turned back and glanced in the direction of Toad-yan, only to see Toad-yan shake his head slightly. What's going on? The body hasn't received the message yet? The shadow clone was a little strange. When Kushina just woke up, he disappeared like another shadow clone to inform the main body. Elder Danzo, do you want to do something to me? At this moment, Kushina stepped forward and said, with anger in her tone. Kushina was very angry at this time. As the wife of the fourth Hokage, she and her husband had made countless contributions to the village, and her husband even died in the battle to protect the village. But now the village actually wanted to do something to her, which was hard for her to accept for a while. Swish. At this moment, a young figure came here. This person wore a white mask, carried a small sword on his back, and wore clothes with the emblem of the Uchiha clan printed on it. You are. Although not very familiar, the shadow clone still felt a familiar aura on him. The next moment, the man took off his mask. He had black hair and two deep ravines on his childish looking face. It was Uchiha Fugaku's eldest son, Uchiha Itachi. Aunt Zine, long time no see. It's Itachi, you've grown up a lot. Kushina reached out and rubbed his head twice. Chapter 57 Tailed Beast Coat. Uchiha Itachi, why is he here? The shadow clone was a little surprised to see the person coming. Did Sande send him here? Impossible. The shadow clone shook his head and denied the idea in his mind. If the third generation really wanted to send someone here, how could it be possible to send only Uchiha Itachi alone? What's more, with the third generation's sinister character, the shadow clone guessed that he would not show up today, no matter what. Moreover, Kushina has just woken up, and Danzo has led the roots to rush over. How can there be no 3 generations involved? Uchiha, Itachi, what are you doing here? Do you want to hinder the execution of our mission at the root? Then Danzo's cold voice came over. Hearing this, Itachi raised his head and was about to say something. Uchiha dared to hinder the village from carrying out its mission. I have made a note of this. Sooner or later, I will ask Uchiha for an explanation. Without giving Itachi a chance, Danzo spoke again and directly slapped him with a big pat. Itachi's pupils shrank slightly, and then he stopped saying anything. He just took a step forward and stood in front of Kushina, standing side by side with the shadow clone. In fact, he had expected such a result before coming here, but he came anyway. Sandaime-sama, you have betrayed the will of fire. After getting the news that Kushina had awakened, he went to see the third generation, but the other party had been avoiding him. This move also reminded the precocious Itachi of something. Coupled with the conversation his father had with him half a year ago, Itachi had gradually changed his previous thoughts. The Uchiha clan, the Hokage, the root, is also a member of the Leaf Village. Why should the Uchiha be excluded? In the past, Itachi, like Shizu, had always thought that the Uchiha clan was too ambitious, but now he had a higher perspective in his heart. Without the persecution of the Hokage and the roots, how could the Uchiha clan have the idea of subverting the village? Although the 4th generation Hokage has not been in office for a long time, both the village and the Uchiha clan respect the 4th generation, especially his father. Uchiha Fugaku regards the 4th generation as his best friend, but now, the 3rd generation and Danzo actually wanted to attack Kushina, which Itachi couldn't accept, so he stood here. Itachi. Uchiha blatantly hindered the execution of the mission, and arrested him together with Naraku. Uzumaki, Danzo, spoke coldly and gave the order again. Although they were reluctant, the root members controlled by Danzo could only obey the order. In an instant, the 3 of them moved forward, approaching Naraku and Itachi. Fire escape, dragon fire technique. The person opposite opened his mouth and spit out a straight line of flames, and the flames attacked the shadow clone at extremely high speed. Wind escape, a big breakthrough. After the shadow clone quickly formed seals with his hands, he opened his mouth and spit out a hurricane. To face the flames, Itachi on the other side was entangled by another close man, and his eyes turned scarlet. While holding a sword, the shadow clone noticed that Itachi's Sharingan was also from a 3 Magatama. It was a 7-year-old 3 Magatama Sharingan. No wonder Uchiha Fugaku valued his grown-up child so much. Hateful. After all, the shadow clone's strength was limited, and since 2 people were attacking him at the same time, he was at a disadvantage. As soon as the battle began, Sunday, Kushina in the back seemed to have thought of something, and her face changed slightly. The village has changed so much. What do you think, Lord Danzo? As she spoke, Kushina raised her head slightly and looked at the figure in front of her with cold eyes. It was Danzo. Uzumaki. Kushina, I have long said that the Jinchuriki should have the consciousness of the Jinchuriki. It was you who did something you shouldn't have done that led to this situation. Haha, wake up. Kushina sneered and said nothing more, but began to secretly mobilize the chakra in her body. Kushina, do you want to die? Suddenly, a roar sounded in her mind. In a cold and damp underground tunnel, a huge red iron cage held a huge beast with a pair of vertical pupils. The beast had dark orange skin and 9 huge tails. It was the yin-type Kyuubi, and he had a frightened expression on his face at this moment. Uzumaki. Kushina, don't you want to see your son? Stop using chakra now. Kyuubi opened his mouth and roared. Naruto. In reality, Kushina heard Kyuubi's roar. A trace of reluctance appeared on her face, and then the majestic chakra disappeared instantly. Call only. Then did Kyuubi breathe a sigh of relief. That day, someone took advantage of your physical weakness after giving birth, and pulled me out of your body. Even though you relied on the special physique of the Uzumaki clan to hold on for a long time. In addition, that boy Minato later sealed me into your body again, which saved your life. But At that time, your body and mind had been severely damaged, and my chakra could only restore your body. Is that why you were unconscious for such a long time, and you can't feel that your poor mental energy is almost zero? Probably because he was afraid that Kushina was messing with chakra. Kyuubi said a lot at once. Kyuubi, you talk too much, Kushina said secretly in her heart. She was naturally very aware of her own situation, and she had just forgotten it in a moment of panic. After all, as a member of the Uzumaki clan, she had never been short of chakra. It looks like I won't be able to use chakra for a while, Kushina smiled bitterly. In that case, lend me some of your power, Kyuubi. Humph, if I weren't afraid that your death would harm me, I wouldn't care about your life or death, Kyuubi murmured, and then a majestic energy surged out of him and seeped out through the huge iron cage. That's almost it. Your current body can only bear this, Kushina. Survive. Yes, I will definitely survive, because there are still many people I care about. In reality, Kushina's eyes fell on the shadow clone, and her eyes gradually became determined. Naraku, my sister won't faint this time. Boom. Then a powerful energy burst out from her body, and dark red chakra-like bubbles condensed around her body. Gilu. Gilu. As the amount of dark red chakra increased, Kushina's whole body was enveloped by this energy, and 3 dark red tails stretched out from her back. A violent wave of energy emanated from her body. Tail beast coat. 3 tails. My Aoki mountain. Don't worry, Naraku. I will definitely inform Jiraiya Samaran. Chapter 58. Naraku arrives. Fire escape. Fire dragon bullet. Earth escape. Earth dragon bullet. The 2 roots in front of the shadow clones took action at the same time. A hot bullet formed by flames surged toward Naraku, and the hot flames shone with red light. Boom. At the same time, an earth dragon rose from the ground. The earth dragon opened its mouth and spit out huge mud bombs. The mud bombs hit the fire bombs with a bang, and the 2 began to combine with each other. Combined. Ninjutsu. Fire flow earth fire bullet. With the burning of the flames, the already powerful mud bombs became extremely hard and blasted towards the shadow clone at extremely high speed. Fire. Escape. Dragon fire bullet. The shadow clone reacted very quickly. After quickly forming seals with his hands, he opened his mouth and spit out a stream of crimson flames. The crimson flames danced like a violent dragon, and then collided with the mud bombs forward. Boom. A violent explosion sounded, and the corridor of the hospital was blown into 2 halves. However, the shadow clone was still too weak after all, and was eventually hit by a mud bomb. With a bang, it turned into a burst of white mist and dissipated. It's just a shadow clone. The 2 people's pupils shrank when they saw this. You must know that they didn't hold back at all just now. Even with the 2 of them joining forces, the shadow clones could last so long. It was obvious that Naraku's own strength was far ahead of them. Then the 2 of them moved and went to help the other person deal with Uchiha. Itachi, who was able to cope with 1 person, was now facing 3 people at the same time and fell into a disadvantage in just an instant. On the other side, Kushina, who had transformed into a tailed beast, started a battle with Danzo. Boom. Boom. The tail formed of dark red energy was fiercely drawn towards Danzo, and sonic booms continued to be heard in the air. Humph. Danzo snorted coldly and retreated quickly, avoiding the tail attack, while quickly forming seals with his hands. Wind escape. 1,000 faces of wind. Call. Call. In an instant, gusts of wind blew from all directions, and countless small wind blades in the wind struck hard at Kushina. Kushina, who was in the tailed beast form, was not afraid of such a move. She let the wind blade fall on the tailed beast's coat, but she continued to attack Danzo without stopping. Puff, puff, puff. The wind blade landed on the dark red tailed beast's coat, making bursts of bursting sounds of bubbles. The tailed beast coat not only brings the host's powerful recovery ability, but also greatly increases the host's defense capabilities. What a troublesome thing. A hint of impatience appeared on Danzo's face. Wind. Escape. Beast wave palm. Danzo struck out with a palm, and the fierce wind caused Kushina to retreat dozens of meters. Nay. At this moment, Kushina seemed to sense something. She turned her head back suddenly, and saw a burst of white mist in her sight. After the white mist cleared, Naraku, with red hair and an Anbu outfit, stood there. Sister. Even though he had received the news from the shadow clone, Naraku's eyes were still filled with joy when he saw with his own eyes that Kushina had fully awakened. Let's reminisce about old times. Let's have a good chat when we get to the roots. Just then Danzo's indifferent voice came. Naraku became angry instantly when he heard this voice and looked straight at the other person with murderous eyes. He made a decision in his mind that if possible, he would leave Danzo, the scourge, here today. Haha, the genius of the Uchiha family, go to hell. At this moment, a sneer came into their ears. Naraku and Kushina looked up and saw Itachi. At this time, he had many scarlet spots on his body, and it was obvious that he was seriously injured. Go. Kushina nodded at Naraku, and then she fought Danzo again. Uchiha Itachi, it seems I owe you a big favor. Naraku murmured. The next moment, his figure disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was standing next to Itachi holding a long sword. Be careful, these people are not weak. Itachi reminded him, it's okay, leave the rest to me. ZHI. ZHI. As he finished speaking, light blue electric arcs flashed around Naraku. The next moment he kicked off his feet, and his whole body turned into a blue shadow, and rushed towards a root member. What's going on? Speed. Before the root member in front could even react, the long knife with blue light in Naraku's hand was already in front of him. Point puff. A long knife with lightning attached pierced his body. Man, the two people next to him screamed in surprise when they saw this, but Naraku didn't give them much time to react. He held the knife in one hand and used a little force to pull the long knife out of the corpse. The next moment he raised the knife to attack again. The remaining two people point the azure blue thunder attribute chakra kept erupting. In more than half a year, Naraku had already mastered the secret technique of lightning escape in Union Village. Point maybe it hasn't reached the level of the fourth Raikage, but it won't be too far behind. Naraku's speed in this state is 5 times that of normal. With his extraordinary speed, Naraku killed the two remaining root members without any effort. This is your true strength. No wonder Shizu thinks so highly of you. Naraku here did not hesitate after finishing dealing with the two roots and rushed towards Kushina in a flash. Itachi saw this and followed him. Boom, boom. The wine type chakra at Danzo's feet kept erupting and he avoided Kushina's attack very quickly. Aha, aha. At this moment, two young figures came here. It was Naraku and Itachi. What a bunch of trash. Danzo's expression changed when he saw the two of them, and then he cursed inwardly. Looking at Danzo in front of him, Naraku didn't rush to take action. Although his strength has increased a lot in the past 6 months, he is still far away from being a shadow level powerhouse. Point as for Danzo, although Naraku is reluctant to admit it, he is indeed a strong cage level warrior on the surface. He may be the same as the third generation, and his strength has declined a lot compared to before, but Naraku knows that it is all superficial. Danzo began to hide his own as early as the third ninja war. The bandage on half of his body was just to hide the first generation cells he transplanted, and the Sharingan in his arm. Sister, just leave him to me. Naraku stretched out his hand to stop Kushina, who wanted to attack again. At this time, he had opened Kaguya's inner eye, and he could clearly feel that Kushina's current state was very poor. Although the tail beast coat formed by Kyuubi's chakra protected her body, Naraku could feel that Kushina's mental energy was weak. This means that she now has a fatal weakness, which is an illusion. Danzo with a Sharingan transplanted on his body must be extremely dangerous to her, and he would not dare to seriously damage Kushina's spirit. Chapter 59 The Showdown Between Uchihas. Konoha Village. News of the fighting in the hospital reached the ears of others on the village streets. What happened over there at the hospital? I don't know. I originally planned to take a look at these old legs today, but I didn't expect the hospital to be closed today. Not only is it closed, I heard that everyone who was staying in the hospital was kicked out today because something important happened in the hospital. Now, it seems that there was an attack on the hospital, as expected of the third generation. You are indeed a brave god. Otherwise the village would have suffered heavy losses again today. At this time, near Konoha Hospital, a series of masked figures blocked the hospital, not allowing anyone to enter or exit at will. There are root members among these people, and there are also Anbu members. However, most of the Anbu members did not know what was going on in the hospital at this time. They only received orders from the third generation to cooperate with the work of the roots, and the rest was not clear. As for the fighting inside, they naturally heard it, but they couldn't enter at all without receiving orders from the third generation. The country of Sichuan. At the Chuanjing bathhouse. As the most luxurious bathhouse in the land of Sichuan, something unspeakable happened. I saw a strong man with white hair lying on the roof looking down at something, and even screamed from time to time. Boom. Suddenly a burst of white mist appeared next to him. And then a small frog stood next to him. Jiraiya-sama, what are you doing? What? How did you come? Yes, this person is none other than Jiraiya, one of the 3 ninjas. As for his current behavior, he must be taking advantage of it. What? At this moment, screams suddenly came from below. Someone is peeking. Then, the bathhouse instantly became chaotic. Alas, it seems that tonight's plan to collect information has been ruined. Jiraiya lowered his head and sighed. Then he took the frog and left here in an instant. Kushina, are you finally awake? Naraku wants me to return to the village immediately. In that case, let's go back. Some things have to be solved after all. Sarutobi Sensei, Wood, Industry Hospital, Ninjutsu, Meat Bullet Chariot. Suddenly, a loud shout came, and then Kyu Daoping's body suddenly swelled up, and then he retracted his head, hands and feet into his body, turning into a giant meat bomb and sweeping forward. Naraku, be careful. Kushina's worried voice came. No need for Kushina to remind him. Naraku already looked like he was facing a formidable enemy at this time. His sharp eyes were fixed on the front, and he jumped up suddenly with both feet on the ground, avoiding Kyu Daoping's attack. But the next moment, the flesh bomb turned into by Kyu Daoping suddenly turned his body. He rushed towards Naraku again from another direction. At this moment, Naraku's pupils shrank suddenly. Coming. Secret technique. Shadow imitation technique. A soft drink sounded, and there was a thin man wearing a mask not far in front of Naraku. At this moment, he put his hands together, and the shadow under his feet instantly stretched into a thin line, and he rushed towards Naraku's shadow at high speed. Yup, the one I've been waiting for. A bright light flashed in Naraku's eyes, and then with a bang, his body turned into a burst of smoke, and a piece of broken wood appeared in the air. Narashikaze's pupils trembled, and then a bitter smile appeared on his lips. He didn't expect that his secret technique would be avoided like this. But the next moment he was stunned. He looked down and saw a pair of arms emerging from the ground and grabbing his ankles. The next moment he felt a pulling force, and then his body fell uncontrollably. I was only forced to do this to you and the 4th madam, and it has nothing to do with our Akimichi clan of Naoshi. Narashikaze's voice rang in Naraku's ears. Naraku just nodded slightly to this, and he could also feel that Narashika, Fengyuki Odohei, and the two had no murderous intention towards them, and they were just doing it to show off and delay time. So Naraku didn't kill him, he just trapped him under the ground, with only his head exposed. Danzo has many root elites. In the entire Konoha village, any family with special abilities will be selected by Danzo to join the root. Some of the people here are orphans of the war, and some are threatened by Danzo. Nara and Akimichi, these two families are even different from other families, especially the Nara clan. Their family generally has high IQ, and has been Konoha's strategist for generations. Naraku didn't have any hostility towards them, so he didn't kill Narashikaze and Akimichi. Later, Kyu Daofeng was only seriously injured by his use of fire escape ninjutsu. At this time, Naraku also felt a little lucky. Only 2 pigs and deer came. If pigs had come, this battle would not be resolved so easily. Then Naraku turned his head and looked to the side, where Danzo was looking at him coldly. Lord Danzo, I wonder if you have any other subordinates, or do you want to do it yourself? Naraku said coldly. Haha, Uzumaki Naraku, your talent is indeed rare, even compared to your brother-in-law Namikaze Minato, but you don't want to be too arrogant. Sometimes, talent doesn't mean everything. It's your turn, Shisu. Just as Danzo finished speaking, a figure stood up from behind him. Looking at the familiar hedgehog hairstyle, Naraku instantly recognized this person. It was Uchiha Shisu, another genius of Uchiha. Zisu, do you also want to be my enemy? Naraku said in a cold tone. Suddenly, a figure appeared next to him. The person's eyes were scarlet and exuded a mysterious aura. It was Uchiha Itachi. After seeing Itachi, Shisu's pupils trembled slightly, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes, but he soon became determined. Itachi, maybe you are right, but now, you may have to apologize. There was also a flash of struggle in Shisu's heart, but in the end reason prevailed over impulse. Although he was unwilling to be an enemy of Itachi in his heart, he still compromised, after thinking of Danzo and the third generation's methods. Shisu, do it quickly. At this moment, seeing Shisu who had been motionless, Danzo urged him. Art fire escape ho fireball. The moment Danzo finished speaking, Shisu and Itachi shouted at the same time, followed by the same action. The two opened their mouths and each spit out a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Boom. After a loud noise, two figures fought with swords in hand. It was Shisu and Itachi. The duel between Uchiha. Naraku originally planned for him to fight Shisu, but was stopped by Itachi. Boom. The huge noise of the two fighting caused a puff of smoke. Chapter 60. The third generation who uses Naruto as a trump card. Konoha Hospital. As the two most outstanding geniuses of the Uchiha clan today, Uchiha Itachi's talent is no worse than Shisu's, or even better. However, because of their age difference, the current Itachi is still slightly inferior to Shisu in terms of strength. Clang, clang. The two silver swords collided with each other, causing sparks to fly in the air. Not far away, Naraku was standing next to Kushina watching the battle. From his point of view, Itachi was at a disadvantage from the beginning. The reason why he was able to persist until now was because Shisu kept his hand. It can be seen from this that Shisu is not completely loyal to Danzo and the third generation. In fact, Naraku was quite surprised by the changes in Itachi and Shisu, especially Itachi. Naraku only briefly mentioned how the third generation brainwashed people in his previous conversation with Uchiha Fugaku, and how he treated his eldest son and Shisu. He did not expect such a result, but it saved him a lot of trouble. The talents and abilities of these two people are among the best in the ninja world. They will be indispensable for dealing with Otsutsuki when they grow up in the future. Exist. Naraku, Naruto, Kushina, who had already released her tail beast form, asked. At this time, she was no longer so worried, because she already knew about Minato's separation and sealing of the Kyuubi in her body. And when she first transformed into a tailed beast, she could clearly sense the chakra of the other half of the Kyuubi, and she knew that Naruto was safe at this time. I'm sorry, sister, Naruto is currently living in the Sarutobi clan's territory. Naraku opened his mouth to say something. Boom. Kushina called him on the head with a shudder. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm sorry. To me, it's the best situation if both you and Naruto are alive. Forehead. Sister, you haven't changed at all. Naraku rubbed his aching head and murmured softly. Even though he was complaining, a smile appeared on his lips unconsciously. Haha, laugh. You won't be able to laugh anymore. Jinchuriki, as long as he is controlled as at all. Hiruzen, let me take the position of Hokage. His cold eyes were always looking at Naraku and the others. The reason Danzo didn't take action now was because he had other plans, a more sinister plan. Hokage building. The third generation wearing Hokage robes stood on the roof. A strong wind blew by, and the robes rustled. A trace of hesitation flashed in Sanday's dark eyes, but he soon became firm. This is all for Konoha, he said this to himself in his heart. Swish, then he disappeared in a flash, and was already in the office when he appeared. At this time, in the office, besides Sanday, there was a young figure. It was a child with blonde hair. What was strange was that he was obviously a child, but he had 6 beards on his face. He is Minato and Kushina's child, Uzumaki Naruto. How could the third generation, who has been in a high position all year round, not know the importance of Naruto? At this time, he was waiting until the Naruto and Naraku were both injured, and then he would step forward. Although Naruto is only a child, it is now the most important card in his hand. At this time, the clan of the Sarutobi clan. 2 masked men sneaked in secretly. They seemed to have familiarized themselves with the route in advance. When they came here, They were familiar with the roads and quickly found their target point in the Sarutobi clan's clan. There is a special room in a slightly remote location. You can see various spells printed on the door, as if there is some monster sealed inside. This is where Naruto lives. Ever since the Sarutobi clan learned that the Ninetales was sealed inside Naruto, they were worried that the Ninetales would break through the seal. Therefore, the Sarutobi clan took Naruto's daily life into consideration, controlled in this room. This arrangement was also tacitly approved by 3 generations. The 2 men quickly touched this place and then sneaked directly into the room. What's going on? Why is there no one looking at the empty room? The 2 people were stunned, but then they reacted and rushed out of the room very quickly. But in the end it was too late. At this time, a transparent light curtain appeared outside the door. It was a special isolation formation, and they were trapped inside. The 2 people who failed the mission looked at each other. After 2 screams of pain, they fell directly to the ground, and dark red blood could be vaguely seen flowing from the corners of their mouths. Failure in the mission means the end of life, which is the purpose of the route. Sure enough, Lord Hawkage guessed it. 2 people walked into the room and said with sneakers as they looked at the body lying on the ground. But what they didn't notice was that a silver figure flashed outside the door, but disappeared in the blink of an eye. Has it been transferred? In this case, it might be a little troublesome, but if that's the case, then just Konoha Hospital, fire, escape, wind fairy flower claws are red. Several shurikens were thrown out of Itachi's hand, and the next moment Itachi opened his mouth and spit out several small red fireballs. Then these fireballs fell on the shurikens. The constantly rotating shurikens exuded scorching heat, and countless firelights fell from the shurikens, like impatient flowers scattered all over the sky, and attacked Shizu. As expected of you, Itachi, Zisu admired in his heart, but then his face straightened. It seems we have to get serious. Looking up, he saw Scholar Eyes exuding a mysterious aura, and then Shizu's figure swayed, and multiple figures appeared on the field instantly. These figures look exactly the same as Shizu's true form, making it difficult to tell whether they are real or fake. Boom, boom, boom. The Impatine scattered in the air fell to the ground with a loud noise. The next moment, all Shizu moved, and they all rushed towards Itachi with short blades in hand. Apart from Minato-san, I think you are the only one who can develop the teleportation technique like this. Shizu. Naraku, who was watching the battle from a distance, thought to himself. In fact, this move seems very mysterious. Several clones are mixed with the main body, making it difficult for people to distinguish the true from the false. But for Naraku, it is not that difficult. With Kaguya's mind eyes turned on, he can easily identify the location of his body. Although the Sharingan also has powerful observation abilities, it is hard to say whether it can see Shizu's flaws. On the field, the 3 black Magatama in Itachi's eyes were spinning at a high speed, and at the same time, his body was also retreating backwards at a high speed, avoiding Shizu's attack. Found it. Suddenly, a gleam flashed in Itachi's eyes, and his eyes fell on a figure. Chapter 61 Naraku vs. Shizu. It was discovered so quickly. Zisu, who was hiding among the clones, had a hint of surprise on his face, but he soon showed a happy expression. Shizu Itachi is like a teacher and a friend. The faster Itachi grows, the happier Shizu feels. Then, let's fight. Shizu, who originally only planned to delay time, changed his mind. There was a fighting spirit in his eyes. He also wanted to see how far Itachi had grown. Uchiha's red sword. A crimson flame rose from the sword in Shizu's hand, and then he moved straight towards Itachi. Extremely fast movement. Swift sword skills. Itachi's pupils shrank slightly. Although he was a little shocked, he did not panic. After quickly forming seals with both hands, fire, escape, the art of the powerful fire dragon. A huge fire dragon emitting scorching heat was ejected from Weasel's mouth. The violent fire dragon swayed in the air and rushed straight ahead in the next moment. Wow. The next moment, after a flash of red sword light, the fire dragon actually began to split from the middle. It was Shizu. He cut the fire dragon in half with one strike. Just when he was about to attack Itachi again, a figure stood in front of him and stopped him. It was Naraku, who had been watching the battle. Leave this to me. Naraku turned to Itachi behind him. Itachi did not refuse this. He was not in very good condition at this time. Before the battle with Shisu, he had been injured in the battle with the roots. It was only Shisu who was able to hold on until now. Itachi retreated with a sullen face and stood next to Kushina. The next moment, he suddenly felt a powerful chakra appeared on his body, and the wounds on his body were being healed visibly under the wrap of this chakra. Aunt Zine, what is this? Looking at the dark red energy wrapped around his body, Itachi's face was full of surprise. It's just a small trick, you should recover quickly. Kushina waved her hand casually. What a little trick, how can you, a woman, abuse my chakra? A roar sounded in Kushina's mind. What abuse? It's just a borrowing, Kushina murmured, and then stopped paying attention to Kyuubi's roar. It seems that I have a good relationship with Kyuubi. Naraku also noticed the rich and violent chakra on Itachi's body. He felt that after Kushina was in coma for such a long time, her relationship with Kyuubi became a little different when she woke up. This is the power of the tailed beast. Danzo's greedy eyes also fell on Itachi, especially after seeing Itachi's quick recovery from his wounds. The greed in his eyes became more and more obvious. At this time, a bold idea arose in his mind. Tailed beast, Jinkriki, clang. Clang. Naraku here has already started a fierce battle with Shisu. The tachi in Shisu's hand is like a short blade, while Naraku holds a long sword in his hand. But the saying that 1 inch is longer, 1 inch is stronger does not seem to apply here. Shisu's Uchiha style swordsmanship moves swiftly and violently, which is similar to the thunder type swordsmanship mastered by Naraku. At this time, the field was filled with 2 colors of light, 1 red and 1 blue. The red flame sword light and the blue thunder sword light kept flashing. Although Naraku has not specifically learned sword skills, he has powerful perception ability after opening Kaguya's inner eye. In addition, his body is covered with blue ox at this time, and his body speed is strengthened several times. The combination of the two makes it seem like his sword skills are also very good. At this time, Naraku once again felt the power of Kaguya's heart. Sharingan also has powerful observation ability and dynamic vision, but Kaguya's inner eye is no worse than it. Just like now, even with Naraku's eyes closed, he can still accurately avoid Shisu's attacks and counterattack. Of course, this does not mean that having the Kaguya heart's eye does not require the Sharingan. In fact, this is not the case. The Kaguya's heart's eye only strengthens people's perception capabilities, and it does not have any offensive capabilities. The Sharingan is different. It replicates ninjutsu, and is an illusion that is unique to the Sharingan. These abilities are already powerful enough, not to mention the bug level abilities added to the main Gekyo. Uzumaki Naraku. I didn't expect this person's talent to be so strong. He is now less than 10 years old, and can suppress Shisu, who is also a genius. Looking at Naraku fighting fiercely with Shisu on the field, a trace of fear flashed in Danzo's heart. He knew in his heart that, if Naraku was given a few years, Konoha would have another shadow level powerhouse who could rival Yellow Flash. Art. Fire escape fireball. While forcing Naraku back with a knife, Shisu formed a seal with one hand, then opened his mouth and spit out a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Facing the fireball, Naraku didn't panic at all. The blue thunder attribute chakra burst out at a very fast speed. Then he swung the sword with both hands, and the sword light shot out, directly cutting a vacuum area in the air in front of him, and the fireball also came from it. Discontinued in half. Wind escape. Beast wave palm. At the same time, Naraku let out a low shout, and then swung his palm forward fiercely. A strong gust of wind appeared instantly, and blew towards Shisu. Kick. 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 Under this strong wind, Shisu's figure instantly fell back several times. But it's not over yet. Shadow clone technique. Naraku shouted. Boom. Then a burst of white mist appeared, and a figure appeared next to him. Wind escape. A big breakthrough. Art. Fire escape fireball. Naraku and the shadow clone shouted at the same time, and a huge fireball composed of red flames poured out of Naraku's mouth. The shadow clone opened its mouth and spit out a fierce wind. The wind assisted the fire, and in an instant, the crimson fireball scattered in all directions, turning into a sea of fire and spreading forward. Naraku's movements are extremely fast, and these are basically completed in an instant. By the time Shisu reacted, the sea of fire had spread to his feet. Kai. A flaming sword pierced the air and dispersed the flames on the ground. Suddenly, just as Shizu was about to retreat to avoid the sea of fire attack, a golden light flashed in front of his eyes. The next moment Shizu felt that his body was being controlled. This is. Zissou looked down at the golden chains wrapped around his body. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. It is the diamond chain. What? A pity. At this time, a trace of regret flashed across Naraku's face. The moment he finished speaking, Shizu, who was entangled in chains, suddenly turned into a ball of crimson flames. Fire clone. Swish. At the same time, a silver blade appeared in front of Naraku, and it was Shizu who struck. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Danzo's Purpose. Kaguya's Heart Eye, the Vajra Chain, plus that pair. It seems that our Naraku has really grown a lot. Kushina looked at Naraku in front of her with a bitter look. Point as a pure-blooded Uzumaki clan, Kushina is very aware of the difficulty of these two ninjutsu. She also started learning them at a young age, and she was still under the guidance of Uzumaki Mito. Even so, I could barely use these two ninjutsu when I was 11 or 12 years old, and it took a long time to become proficient in using them. Kushina was shocked by Naraku's talent, but also felt a little relieved and distressed. My younger brother has shouldered a lot of pressure on his own. Clang. Clang. The sound of metal collision was heard again on the field. Under Naraku's control, two golden chains kept rotating, like two golden snakes, blocking Shizu's advancing figure. The golden chain is very hard. Even with the help of the sword in his hand, Shizu would have to strike with all his strength to cut off the chain. However, even if the chain is cut off, it will return to its original state the next moment. During these time at the border of the Land of Fire, apart from practicing the secret skills of Cloud Hidden Village, Naraku spent the rest of his time practicing the Diamond Chain and Kaguya's Heart Eye. If he explodes with all his strength at this time, the range covered by Kaguya's Heart Eye can even reach about 50 meters around in point compared with before. It has directly increased several times. The diamond chains have not improved that much, but now he can control 5 chains at the same time, and the strength of each chain is several times that of the previous one. The two chains on the field cooperated with each other like two agile golden snakes. Even Shizu was suppressed for a moment. Take this opportunity, Naraku said in his heart. Then two more golden chains protruded from his back, and then turned into two golden snakes, and rushed towards Shizu at high speed. Shijo, the progress is really fast. A hint of surprise flashed in Kushina's eyes again. But the next moment a scene that shocked her even more appeared. Another chain protruded from Naraku's back. Under his control, the chain circled in front of him, and Naraku quickly formed seals with his hands. Black chain restrained. With a low shout, Naraku stretched out a finger and pointed at the chain in front of him. The next moment, a special black spell spread to the chain. In just a moment, the golden chains were covered with black spells, and the dazzling golden light turned pitch black. You even learned this trick yourself? Kushina was deeply surprised at this time. Although she also mastered this move used by Naraku, she only mastered it with Minato's help after marrying Minato. But Naraku, this is a special sealing technique that can only be used by the Uzumaki clan who master the diamond chain. Attach the sealing spell to the chain, and the chain will have the ability to seal. The sealing spell will be instantly transferred to the target entangled in the chain. The effect is the same as using the sealing technique directly on the target. It is worth mentioning that this sealing technique was not inherited from the Uzumaki clan, but was developed by Minato and Kushina together on the court. Shizu's forehead was covered with beads of sweat, and he felt great pressure facing 4 chains at the same time. Shizu is no stranger to the secret technique of the Vajra chain, which is exclusive to the Uzumaki clan. He has seen Kushina use it several times, but this was his first time fighting against the Vajra chain. The 3 black Magatama in the scarlet eyes kept spinning, and Shizu's body moved faster and faster. Only the golden snake-like chains and the afterimage of Shizu flashed across the field, as expected of Shunshin Shizu. Seeing Shisu gradually adapting. A hint of surprise flashed in Naraku's eyes, targeting one person. 4 golden chains are deployed at the same time. If it is an ordinary Jounin, he may not be able to sustain a few moves before being restrained by the chains. That is, someone like Shisu, who has the dynamic vision of the Sharingan and extremely fast body reaction speed, can survive until now, but the next second, the corners of Naraku's mouth raised slightly, and then a black light shot out very quickly, like a poisonous snake, that moved quickly and fiercely. 5 chains were thrust out at the same time, and then Naraku closed his eyes directly. Kaguya's inner eye exploded with all his strength, and he began to concentrate on manipulating the chains. 4 gold, 1 black and 5 chains cooperated with each other, and launched a fierce attack on Zishu. For a moment, Shisu felt that the pressure doubled, and the 3 black Magatama in his pupils were spinning rapidly, as if they were about to connect together. Clang, clang, clang. Facing 5 chains at the same time, even if the Sharingan could keep up with the movement speed of the chains, Shisu's movements could not keep up. He could only quickly wave the sword in his hand to resist the attack of the chains. But after all, 2 fists are no match for 4 palms. Naraku soon seized the opportunity and wrapped a chain around Shisu's ankle. Sure enough, I was caught after all. Shishi, who was also aware, showed bitterness. However, he did not compromise. Light blue chakra erupted on his feet. He tried to break the chains, but it was obvious that he failed. The golden chains wrapped around his feet only trembled slightly twice before resisting the impact of the chakra explosion point. Then Naraku manipulated the chain and began to exert force. Shisu instantly felt a strong pulling force coming from his feet, trying to pull his body to one side. Point clang. Shisu reacted very quickly, holding the knife with one hand and slashing at the chains on his feet. At the same time, his other hand quietly reached out. Just as he was about to form the seal point, the black chain had been wrapped around his waist at some point, and the next moment the black technique on the chain was instantly transferred to Shisu's body point. Then his hand that was about to form the seal was immediately immobilized, and at the same time, his body was covered with black spells. Shisu, who lost control of his body, shook twice, and the next moment a figure suddenly appeared next to him, reaching out to support him. With a sinister smile and a bandage on his head, it was Danzo Shimura, the leader of the Roots. Wind Escape, Beast Wave Palm. Danzo struck out with a palm, and the sharp wind attribute chakra tore apart the chains wrapped around Shisu. The next moment, he pulled Shisu's body and retreated quickly. Naraku frowned slightly. He couldn't understand Danzo's actions. Even though so many people had died before, Danzo hadn't seen anyone save anyone. Why did he take action when he got to Shisu? Naraku didn't think that Danzo was very optimistic about Shisu. Could it be? Suddenly, Naraku seemed to have thought of something. His face suddenly changed, and then he immediately controlled the chain and rushed towards Danzo. Sharingan. Danzo's goal is Shisu's Sharingan. Naraku's face turned ugly. Chapter 63 Unexpected Person. Konoha Hospital. Call out, call out, call out. The 5 golden chains were extremely fast and launched an offensive towards Danzo at the same time. It's really troublesome. Danzo just waved slightly, and in an instant 3 figures wearing masks appeared in front of him. Point clang, clang, clang. The sound of metal collision continued, and the chain was blocked by the 3 people using short blades. Uchiha. Shisu, if you want to blame it, it's because you have power that you shouldn't have. Looking at Shisu in front of him, Danzo thought to himself, other gods, an ultimate illusion that can change the will of others. After Danzo learned that Shisu had such power, he felt deeply fearful, and at the same time a bold idea also appeared in his mind. The Manjaki Sharingan is mine. Danzo secretly thought in his heart, then stretched out his hand like a claw and thrust towards Shisu's left eye. Sensing the abnormality, Shisu's scarlet eyes appeared instantly, and the 3 black Magatama began to rotate rapidly, just as they were about to connect together. Point puff. A splash of scarlet blood spattered, and Danzo was seen holding a scarlet eyeball in his hand. Well, Shisu, who was controlled by the technique, let out a cry of pain. The next one will be another one. Danzo muttered, and then he threw the eyeball into a special container. Just when he was about to take off Shizu's right eye again. Call out. Call out. Several shurikens rushed towards Danzo from all directions, and at the same time, a black shadow had arrived next to Shizu. At this moment, he saw a dark red chain wrapped around his body. The next moment, the chain automatically came forward and hung on Shizu. Boom. Danzo on the other side just waved one hand, and a strong wind blew away the shurikens. Just when he turned back to attack Shizu again, the dark red chain exerted force and directly dragged Shizu's body away. At the same time, the black spells on his body also slowly dissipated. Damn it, Danzo cursed secretly as his plan was ruined. Just then a figure appeared next to him, holding a short blade, and attacked him. It was Itachi who took action. He looked ugly at this time and his eyes were fixed on the green bottle in Danzo's hand. There was a scarlet eye soaked in the green liquid. Clang. Danzo blocked Itachi's attack with a kunai in his hand, and the next moment he kicked his feet on the ground and retreated quickly. At this time, the black technique that restricted Shizu's movements had been lifted by Kushina. When he resumed his movements, he covered his left eye with his hand, and scarlet blood flowed from his fingers. Clang, clang, clang. Naraku on the other side began to erupt, and the 5 chains moved quickly knocking back the 3 roots. Just when he was about to attack Danzo, a figure suddenly appeared. With his narrow eyes and pale golden pupils, this man exuded a cold aura just by standing there. Orochimaru. Seeing the visitor, Naraku's face was filled with shock. Danzo captured Shizu's eyes. Although he was surprised, it was what happened in the original book after all, just a few years in advance. He could barely accept it. But now Orochimaru actually appeared here, which he never expected. Naraku then stopped Itachi, who wanted to continue his attack, and took him and Shizu back to Kushina's side. Uncle Orochimaru, long time no see. At this time, Kushina didn't know that Orochimaru had defected to Konoha, because she and Orochimaru were familiar with each other because of Jiraiya. Yeah, long time no see, Kushina. Also, my little nephew, why don't you say hello to your uncle when you see him? Orochimaru turned his head and cast a cold gaze on Naraku. Sister, Orochimaru has betrayed the village and is now a traitor. Ignoring Orochimaru's words, Naraku turned to Kushina and explained. He was really afraid that Kushina would get close to Orochimaru without knowing it. Now that Orochimaru appears here, it is obvious that he is an enemy rather than a friend. Naraku does not think that Orochimaru is here to help them. Shizu, Itachi. At this moment, a steady voice came from behind Naraku and the others. You go back first. Everyone turned around when they heard the sound and saw a familiar figure appearing in their sight. Kushina, long time no see, Uchiha. Fugaku first greeted Kushina with a smile and then said to Shizu in a deep voice, it's not too late to see some things clearly now. Itachi, take him back. I will help him get the Sharingan back. Clan leader. Looking at the patriarch who had taught him before, Shizu felt a flash of guilt in his heart, and his remaining right eye was also a little dim at this time. Let's go. The next moment, a young body helped him up. Looking at Itachi's familiar face, Shizu smiled again. Okay. Then Itachi and Shizu left here together. Naraku saw several people wearing Uchiha costumes leaving with them, while Fugaku stayed. Uchiha. Fugaku, are you trying to hinder the Roots mission? Came Danzo's cold tone. Hindering the mission of the Root? Haha, Elder Danzo, what do you mean by this? Could it be that the mission of the Root is to collude with the traitorous ninja Orochimaru to attack the wife and brother of the 4th Hokage? The mission of your Roots is to capture the Sharingan of my Uchiha clan. Fugaku sneered with a sneer on his face. Humph, Danzo snorted coldly. Do I need to report to you what I do? Haha, Uchiha clan, nephew, it seems that you have expected this day, Orochimaru said with a sneer. However, it seems that just saying this is not enough. As he spoke, Orochimaru took a step forward, and an invisible aura emanated from him. Compared to the older generation of shadow level powerhouses like Danzo, Orochimaru, who is in his prime, is more powerful at the shadow level in terms of momentum. Uncle. Master, are you going to compete with your nephew again? Light blue chakra exploded on Naraku, and then he took a step forward with a long knife in his hand, looking directly at Orochimaru with his sharp eyes. It was just that he greeted Kushina with his other hand behind his back. Competition. It seems that my nephew has made a lot of progress recently, and he dares to compete with his uncle, Orochimaru. Stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, his eyes filled with coldness. Stop talking nonsense and deal with them as soon as possible. Danzo's urging voice came at this moment. Haha, my uncle has become the subordinate of our elder Danzo, Naraku said with a sneer on his face. In response, Orochimaru just sneered and said nothing, but the cold aura in his eyes became more and more obvious. In fact, the reason why he appeared in Konoha was just to make a deal with Danzo, and as for this dispute, he was just involved for no reason. Chapter 64 Brother K, you're late. Hokage's office. The third generation had a pipe in his mouth and was puffing away. Suddenly, he seemed to sense something, and his expression changed slightly. Here it is. Teacher, smoking in front of children is not a good habit. A familiar voice reached his ears, and then Sande saw a familiar figure. He had flowing white hair, 2 lines of red oil paint on his face, and an oil character printed on the forehead protector on his head. The person who came was none other than Jiraiya. However, his expression was not very good at this time, especially when he looked down and saw the sleeping Naruto. A trace of guilt flashed in his eyes. Jiraiya, you. Facing his beloved disciple, Sande wanted to say something, but in the end he couldn't say it. Then the two of them were silent with each other for a long time. Konoha Hospital. Orochimaru, who was full of momentum, moved forward slowly. With every step he took, Naraku felt the pressure on his body getting heavier. Sister, you. When he noticed that Kushina behind him still didn't move, Naraku couldn't help but urge point. But Kushina remained unmoved, but the dark red-tailed beast coat enveloped her body again. Kushina knew that Naraku wanted her to use reverse channeling to leave here and go to Mount Mayaboku, but as a sister, how could she leave like this? Oh, this is the power of the tailed beast. It is indeed very powerful. Orochimaru's eyes shone brightly after feeling the rich and violent energy of Kushina. Because of a certain person, he now urgently needs to increase his strength, otherwise he would not take the risk of returning to Konoha to find Danzo. As for why they want to attack Naraku and the others now, it's just a whim. Latent shadow snake hand. At this moment, Orochimaru flicked his arm, and in an instant, more than a dozen venomous snakes sprang out from his cuffs. All of these venomous snakes opened their mouths and stretched out their tongues to make hissing sounds. Upon seeing this, Naraku's pupils shrank, and after quickly forming seals with his hands, he said, "Fire escape, a powerful fireball technique." He opened his mouth and spat out a huge fireball. The red flames exuded scorching heat, and then the fireball rushed forward, directly submerging the bodies of the poisonous snakes. Boom. A fierce gust of wind blew away the red fireball, and Orochimaru's extremely cold face appeared in Naraku's sight again. Swish. Orochimaru smiled coldly, then opened his mouth suddenly, and a long sword covered in mucus was pulled out from his belly. It was the sacred weapon Kusanagi sword. The next moment, wind attribute chakra instantly clung to the entire sword. Let uncle see if my nephew has made any progress recently. Orochimaru smiled coldly, then leaned forward and rushed towards Naraku with a long sword in hand. Shadow clone technique. Boom. Boom. After separating 2 shadow clones to stay and protect Kushina, Naraku also rushed towards Orochimaru with a long sword in hand. ZHI. ZHI. Blue electric arcs instantly covered his body. At this moment, Naraku's speed became extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Orochimaru. The long knife in his hand turned into a silver shadow and slashed forward. Clang. There was a clear sound of metal collision, and Naraku felt a huge force coming from the blade. He mobilized all the chakra in his body to be able to remove this huge force. The gap is still so big. Naraku thought secretly in his heart. Kai. At this moment, Orochimaru on the opposite side flicked his wrist, and the sharp sword blade struck again from another direction. Naraku's alarm went off instantly. He didn't dare to hesitate at all. He kicked his feet on the ground and retreated quickly. At the same time, 2 golden chains stretched out from behind, and the chains turned into 2 golden snakes and rushed forward. Clang, clang, facing the attack of the chain, Orochimaru did not panic at all. The Kusanagi sword waved in the air, cutting off the chain at the mere moment of contact point. Naraku was not surprised by this. As one of the 3 major artifacts, the Kaozujian still had some power. Fire escape, dragon fire bullet. Naraku, who retreated, opened his mouth again and spat out a huge fireball. Deep red flames like magma surged out and spread forward at extremely fast speeds. Wind. Escape. A big breakthrough. Even simple sea-level ninjutsu is equally powerful in the hands of a strong man like Orochimaru. A violent hurricane appeared on the field, directly blowing the crimson flames away. As expected of one of the 3 ninjas, Naraku sighed in his heart, but then his face became increasingly ugly. Fugaku on the other side was fighting with several people at the root. Fugaku's eyes were scarlet, while holding a kunai, and 3 black Magatama were constantly rotating in his mu. With the powerful dynamic vision of the Sharingan, he alone held down 3 root members who were all at the Jounin level. As for Danzo, although he did not take action at this time, he always focused on Kushina and had plans to take action at any time. Clang. After using the long sword to block Orochimaru's blow again, Naraku's expression became more and more nervous. The situation at this time was very unfavorable for their side. Not to mention that there was a shadow level powerhouse like Danzo who didn't take action, but Orochimaru alone was enough to sweep them all. Snake stomp. Boom, boom. A burst of white mist appeared, and then 2 giant snakes instantly appeared on the field. The giant snakes' mouths opened wide, and their sharp snake teeth flashed with cold light. Then the 2 giant snakes crawled on their bodies and attacked Naraku very quickly. ZHI. ZHI. When Naraku saw this, the blue light on his body surged, and the thunder attribute chakra burst out violently. Then he moved around very quickly, avoiding the attack of the big snake. Call out. Suddenly, a figure exuding a cold aura came behind Naraku. It was Orochimaru. At this time, he was seen swinging forward with a sword in his hand. Not good. Naraku secretly thought in his heart. Although Kaguya Zinrai sensed Orochimaru's movements, the opponent's speed was too fast. At this time, Naraku had no time to react. He could only turn his body slightly. Puff. A burst of scarlet blood spattered, and a hideous wound appeared on Naraku's shoulder. The red blood was slowly dripping down. Orochimaru smiled coldly, and then he was about to attack Naraku again. Get out of my way. At this moment, a roar came, and then a dark red figure fell from the sky, and at the same time, a giant tail formed of dark red energy swept towards Orochimaru. Swish. Orochimaru didn't dare to resist. He kicked his feet on the ground and stepped back violently. Naraku, are you okay? Came Kushina's worried tone. Hearing this, Naraku shook his head slightly. Sister, I am fine. Kushina turned to look at Naraku's shoulder, and she could see that the blood there had stopped at this time. Hiss. At this moment, the 2 giant snakes suddenly appeared behind Kushina, opening their big mouths and rushing towards her. But the next moment, a silver light flashed, and the 2 giant snakes were cut in half by it. Naraku smiled when he saw this. Brother K, you're late. Chapter 65. Fighting against Danzo. Naraku falls into passivity. With long silver hair, a black mask, and a slim and handsome figure, the person coming was none other than Kakashi. Kakashi. Seeing this very familiar figure, Kushina, who was wearing a tailed beast coat, showed a happy expression, but the next moment she reacted. She said to Kakashi, Kakashi, take Naraku and go first. Master, you're awake. Kakashi, holding a silver short blade, turned around and said. Although the mask blocked his expression, the slightly joyful tone still proved his mood at the moment. As for Kushina's words to let him go, he simply ignored her. It seems it failed, Naraku muttered. In fact, the reason why he returned to the village so late before was to inform Kakashi that his plan was to have Kakashi go to the Sarutobi clan's territory to bring Naruto back. But now it seems to have failed. If that's the case, then let's fight. Naraku formed a seal with one hand, then stretched out his hand and stroked his palm. Psychic art. Boom. A burst of white mist appeared, and then a fiery red toad appeared on the field, which was Toadyan Point, but Naraku summoned it not to let it participate in the battle. But I am sorry, sister, Meluo secretly said in his heart. The next moment his eyes turned scarlet, and the 3 black Magatama exuded a mysterious aura. nay. Kushina was about to say something when she saw this, but the next moment she lost consciousness, the dark red energy on her body disappeared instantly, and her body began to shake. Just when she was about to fall, Naraku reached out to support her. "Please, Todian." Naraku lowered his head and looked at the thin Todian. "Ha, you are really troublesome." Despite complaining, Todian still stretched out a paw and put it on Kushina's arm. Not far away, Danzo, whose attention had been focused on Kushina, let out an exclamation, and then he rushed towards this side very quickly. Wind. Escape. Beast wave palm. Danzo clapped out a palm with all his strength, and instantly a gust of wind hit him at a very fast speed point at this moment. Kakashi next to Naraku moved. He wielded a short blade and swung out a knife, cutting the air in front of him directly, forming a vacuum area. "This is Tsukumo's." Danzo immediately stopped when he saw this move. In his sight, a tall and resolute figure reflected each other with Kakashi's thin body point behind him. Orochimaru's eyes also flashed with a strange color. The legendary white fang of Konoha once again blossomed today. Boom. At this moment, Kushina and Todian suddenly turned into a burst of white mist and disappeared. "Now, let's make a complete settlement." Naraku stood up, his dazzling red hair fluttering in the wind, his scarlet eyes exuding coldness. Although he was a young man, he possessed an alluring aura point. After sending Kushina to Mount Mayaboku, Naraku no longer had any worries at this time. As for Naruto, as a Jinchuriki, he will be fine in the short term. After all, that is the last card of the third generation. Crack. Crack. Electric arcs as thick as a finger flickered around Naraku, and the thunder attribute chakra completely exploded. Then he turned to look at Orochimaru aside, fighting intent rising in his scarlet eyes. "One for each." "Okay." Kakashi nodded, and the next moment he suddenly turned around and rushed towards Orochimaru with a short blade in hand. Forehead. Naraku was stunned for a moment, but then he shook his head and smiled bitterly, then turned around and rushed towards Danzo. Naraku can understand why Kakashi chose Orochimaru as his opponent. After all, Danzo was still the elder of Konoha village, so it was a bit far-fetched for Kakashi to take the initiative to attack him at this time. In that case, Elder Danzo, let me come and meet you. The next moment Naraku attacked Danzo with a long sword. Haha. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku was breathing heavily, and you could see a hideous wound on his shoulder, with red blood flowing out. Not far in front of him, 3 masked corpses fell in a pool of blood. He turned to look at the 2 figures, one red and one silver, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that White Fang and Flash will reappear in the ninja world again. It turned out to be the Sharingan. Looking at Naraku's scarlet eyes, Danzo's eyes were filled with surprise, and at the same time there was a trace of imperceptible jealousy. He also has a lot of Sharingan, but he can't use it as freely as Naraku. Uzumaki, Uchiha, double blood, Uzumaki. Naraku, you are really full of surprises. At this time, Danzo's eyes were full of coldness, and then he threw a shuriken directly at Naraku. The shuriken was covered with wind attribute chakra and looked extremely sharp. Wind escape, vacuum waves. At the same time, after quickly forming seals with his hands, he opened his mouth and spit out several extremely powerful wind blades. The shurikens blessed with wind attribute chakra and the wind blades like a sickle and weasel all attacked Naraku at great speed. ZHI. The blue light on Naraku's body surged. Faced with these attacks, he did not choose to resist them head-on, but dodged them with great speed. At the same time, he flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Danzo. The long knife in his hand was covered with arcs of electricity, and he slashed straight towards him. Danzo didn't panic at all, and after quickly forming seals with his hands, he let out a low drink. Would escape, violent gun tree. Then, his bandaged right arm instantly turned into a huge tree and attacked Naraku. After cutting the branch in front of him into several pieces with one knife, Naraku kicked his feet on the ground and stepped back quickly while forming a seal with one hand. Art. Fire escape. Fireball. Naraku opened his mouth and spit out a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters. Boom. The fireball hit the trees heavily, and in an instant red flames rose up, directly covering the entire tree. Puff, puff, puff. At this moment, Several air-piercing sounds sounded, and air bullets like bullets rushed toward Naraku at extremely high speeds. Wind, escape, vacuum jade. Danzo's figure came to the other side. At this time, his mouth was slightly pouted, and he kept attacking Naraku. It's so difficult. Naraku moved quickly, constantly dodging air bomb attacks. He felt that fighting against Danzo was not as comfortable as fighting against Orochimaru. Although Danzo does not have the weird snake ninjutsu like Orochimaru, his wind escape ninjutsu is equally powerful, and he also has the wood escape ninjutsu he obtained after transplanting the first generation cells. Although Danzo's wood release ninjutsu is not very powerful, it is much easier to use than Yamato's greening skill point. It was obvious that Naraku fell into a passive situation in this battle. Chapter 66 Kakashi vs. Orochimaru. Clang, clang. On the field, Kakashi on the other side was already fighting with Orochimaru. The silver short blade turned into a silver shadow in his hand and continued to attack Orochimaru. Kakashi at this time was very different from before. Before, due to the Sharingan, his chakra was limited and he felt timid every time he fought, but now it is different. After learning sword skills again, he now exudes a fierce aura. Even Orochimaru, one of the three ninjas, is shocked by Kakashi's current appearance. Haha, interesting little guy. Konoha is really a place rich in geniuses. Kakashi, Hatake, let me see how much of your father's skills you have learned. At this moment, Orochimaru's aura surged. A cold, powerful aura rushed to his face instantly, and Kakashi felt that he was not facing a person, but a ferocious snake. Poisonous snake. I'm not your prey. Kakashi also released an aura that was not weaker than the others. This aura was fierce, aloof, and domineering, giving people a feeling of being inferior to him. Kakashi held the short blade across his chest, with only his exposed right eye staring at Orochimaru in front of him. The fighting spirit gradually boiled up. The Sannin is a ninja as famous as his father Konoha White Fang, and Kakashi is also very curious about such a character. Holding the short blade in his hand tightly, the chakra in his body began to circulate rapidly, and his body tensed slightly. ZHI. ZHI. Suddenly, a blue arc of electricity appeared on Kakashi's right palm, followed by the roar of thunder, and a blue arc of electricity emerged on the short blade. Here we come. Orochimaru's pale golden pupils trembled slightly, and in his sight, a silver figure moved. Hatake sword technique, thunder slash. A soft drink came from Kakashi's mouth. The short silver blade was like a thunder dragon, with hundreds of blue arcs wrapped around the blade. The sword was so powerful that even the two Naraku who were fighting fiercely in the distance were attracted and looked at it. It has to be you, Brother K. A smile appeared on Naraku's lips. Speaking of boasting, Kakashi's current strength is also due to his contribution. The son of the White Fang. Haha, this talent has surpassed that of Tsukumo. Danzo thought secretly in his heart, with a sharp light flashing in his eyes. In his heart, any power that he cannot control must be eliminated, even if it is a member of the village, just like White Fang once did. Kakashi, whose attention was focused on Orochimaru at this time, might not know that his life was being worried about by others again. Kai. The short blade tore the air, and Kakashi swung out the sword, his body following him like a shadow, and the blade carried powerful thunder power. Thunder Slash, one of the killing moves of Hatake swordsmanship, requires a large amount of chakra as a basis and a certain level of swordsmanship to be able to use this move. Condensing the thunder attribute chakra on the blade, releasing it with the help of sword skills, it turns into thunder and cuts, making bursts of roaring sounds. Orochimaru only felt a silver shadow flash past, and even before he had time to react, a sharp pain came through his body. It can be seen that there are multiple hideous wounds on Orochimaru's abdomen, and red blood slowly flows out. Hiss. What a powerful move. If an ordinary person was injured to this extent, he might not even be able to stand up. But Orochimaru was acting as if nothing was wrong at the moment, and the sneer on the corner of his mouth never seemed to stop. The next moment, Orochimaru suddenly opened his mouth. A pair of pale hands came out of his mouth, and then an unacceptable scene appeared. Following the hands, head, shoulders, and body, a complete person spat out from Orochimaru's mouth, and this person looked exactly like Orochimaru. Orochi style substitution technique. A special ninjutsu that uses the external body as a substitute and does not require any seals. It can be called the most perfect substitute technique. Kakashi didn't expect that his ultimate move would be broken by Orochimaru. It has only been more than half a year since he started learning sword techniques again. Thunder Slash is the strongest sword technique he has mastered so far, and it is even more powerful than the Chidori in its normal state. Take. Kakashi, you are such an incredible genius. Looking at Kakashi, Orochimaru's eyes flashed with admiration, but it was fleeting. In addition to admiration, Orochimaru seemed to be more interested in Kakashi's body at this time, and his cold eyes were always watching him. Forget it, you are a foreigner after all, and the Sharingan is nothing more than a burden to you. Orochimaru thought secretly in his heart. Then he made a mark with one hand and slapped it on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. A huge puff of smoke rose, and Kakashi felt only a cold breath coming from him. Then the smoke dissipated, and several giant pythons appeared on the field. Go. Under the control of Orochimaru, the giant pythons all opened their mouths and pounced towards Kakashi. Chidori Ryu, ZHI. Blow electric arcs instantly covered his body. Kakashi was not afraid of the giant python's attack. He held a knife in his right hand and turned into a blue shadow to face the giant python. The Chidori style used by Kakashi is an improved version of Naraku, based on the secret technique of Hidden Cloud Village. After abandoning the defensive ability, the speed is greatly improved, and the consumption of chakra is also appropriately reduced. This was specially improved by Naraku for Kakashi. Otherwise, with the massive amount of chakra in his body, he would not care about this consumption. Take sword technique, shatter the sky. Kakashi shouted in a low voice, and then rushed forward. With the help of this powerful impact, he fiercely swung the short blade in his hand, and a silver blade shot out. The silver light tore through the air and landed directly on a giant python. Its grey-black scales were torn to pieces in the blink of an eye. The next moment, the giant python turned into a white mist and dissipated with a bang. A psychic beast can choose to return to the psychic world when its chakra is exhausted or when it is fatally attacked, but there are exceptions. Swish. At this moment, Orochimaru stood on the giant flick python and attacked Kakashi. Latent shadow snake hands. Wither of his cuffs, dozens of venomous snakes swooped out in an instant, their ferocious fangs flashing with cold light. Kakashi was not afraid of this at all. He swung the short blade at high speed, and a silver blade flashed past, cutting off all the poisonous snakes. But this was just the beginning. The next moment, Orochimaru, holding the Sochi sword, had arrived in front of him. The sharp blade was covered with wind attribute chakra, and he slashed directly towards Kakashi's neck. Clang. The short blade blocked it and collided fiercely with Kozuchian point, but the next moment, a powerful sidekick landed on Kakashi's waist, and then his body flew out sideways. Chapter 67. Danzo Hiruzen ordered me to be arrested. Although Kakashi's strength has increased a lot now, he still has not reached the cage level after all, and is still far behind Orochimaru. But even so, it is unrealistic for Orochimaru to defeat him in a short time. Just like Naraku and Danzo. Although Danzo is a shadow level powerhouse, he can't defeat Naraku in a short time. He even said that, if he doesn't use the Sharingan on his arms, he won't be able to defeat Naraku at all. But similarly, it is unrealistic for Naraku to kill Danzo now. The battle between them was now at a stalemate. Hokage's office. At this time, the third generation and Jiraiya started a fierce quarrel. Jiraiya, are you trying to make an enemy of the village? The third generation said with a frosty look on his face. Let go of the Jinchuriki. He is not someone you can touch casually. Jiraiya, who was holding Naruto in his arms, looked up at the third generation, his eyes full of disappointment. Being an enemy of the village. Haha, teacher, are you forcing me? And the Jinchuriki? This child is just a Jinchuriki. Isn't his father the hero of the village? But what about you? How do you treat the son of a hero? And Kushina, why did Genbu attack her? Isn't there a trace of you, teacher, in this? Facing Jiraiya's questions, the third generation seemed to have aged more than 10 years in an instant. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, the three most outstanding disciples of his. One defected and two did not stay in the village all year round. Now Jiraiya came here to question him again. Yes, he did those things, but so what? He did so much just to want the village to develop better. Boom. The third generation slapped the table in front of him with such force that the table broke into several pieces. Enough. With a loud shout, the third generation shouted with an angry face, Jiraiya, it's not my turn to teach you a lesson. You are not eligible. Sandai said in a cold tone. Boom. Boom. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door in the office. Lord Hokage, Elder Danzo and the rebel ninja Orochimaru took action against the 4th Hokage's wife, Lady Uzumaki Kushina. A masked Anbu officer reported carefully. In fact, the area near Konoha Hospital was surrounded by Anbu sent by the 3rd generation, and he was very aware of every move that happened there. Orochimaru. The Sandaimon Jiraiya exclaimed at the same time. The former's expression changed, and his inner patience with Danzo dropped a bit again. In fact, the reason why he persuaded Danzo to attack Kushina this time was that on the one hand he wanted to keep control of the Jinchuriki, that is, Naruto, and on the other hand he was targeting Danzo. No matter for any reason, Danzo's murder of the 4th Hokage's wife was once known to the people of the village, plus other dirty things Danzo had done over the years. In this way, Danzo's reputation in the village will drop to the bottom, and his dream of being the Hokage will be completely ended. But Danzo actually dragged Orochimaru into it again. Without even thinking about it, the 3rd generation knew that Danzo would definitely throw the blame on Orochimaru again. Just like last time, Danzo wasn't involved in Orochimaru's research on living subjects. At this moment, Sandai began to think about the solution to this matter. No matter what, he has to become the biggest profiter. This is the bottom line of the 3rd generation. Suddenly, a plan arose in his mind. Danzo, you have always represented the darkness of Konoha, so now let you become the true darkness. A plan arose in the minds of 3 generations. Come on. Shimura Danzo colluded with the traitorous ninja Orochimaru to murder the 4th Hokage's wife, Uzumaki Kushina. Now Anbu are dispatched to rescue the 4th lady and arrest Orochimaru and Shimura Danzo. Sandai said coldly. Then the 3rd generation stepped forward, and just as he stood up, a crystal ball was revealed. At this time, the crystal ball showed Naruto's room, the place of the Sarutobi clan. The same goes for the 2 root personnel lying on the ground. However, these images only flashed by and soon disappeared. However, Jiraiya was still aware of it. At this time, a trace of hesitation flashed across his face. He looked at Naruto in his arms, and wondered if he had been too impulsive just now. Jiraiya, you may not understand what the teacher is doing, but I just want to protect this village. Human, Naruto, although Naruto is Minato's child, it wasn't Minato who chose him. Minato must also believe in this child, and believe that he will change the fate of the Jinchuriki. After hearing such words, Jiraiya fell silent. Yes, it was Minato's choice that Naruto was a Jinchuriki, his most outstanding disciple. At that time, would Minato have expected that his son would be used by others? Would he? At this moment, Jiraiya thought a lot, and there was a trace of sadness between his brows. Minato, I believe you. Naraku, the teacher is going to let you down. In the end, Jiraiya handed Naruto over to the 3rd generation, and then they set off together towards Konoha Hospital. I will completely clean up the darkness in the village, and give everyone a village bathed in sunshine. The 3rd generation spoke up and promised Jiraiya Konoha Hospital. At this time, the situation here changed dramatically again. Several people dressed in Anbu came here, and they all stood behind Kakashi. Captain Kakashi, we received orders from Lord Hokage to come and support you. Sandai, how did he? Kakashi's pupils shrank slightly. Under Naraku's long-term exaggeration, Kakashi was full of distrust of the 3rd generation at this time. If the 3rd generation would really help them, this situation would never have happened. Swish. At this time, Naraku didn't bother to tangle with Danzo anymore, and ducked to Kakashi's side. He was equally puzzled by the Enbu's behavior. What are you doing, Uzumaki? Naraku and Hatake Kakashi openly attacked this elder in the village. Do you want to accept the punishment with him? Danzo said with an impatient expression. He didn't know why he suddenly felt uneasy in his heart. Danzo suppressed this uneasiness. Even if he couldn't get the Jinchuriki today, his gains were not small. The ability brought by Shizu Sharingan was no worse than that of the Jinchuriki. We received an order from Lord Hokage. Danzo Shimura and the rebel ninja Orochimaru colluded to murder the 4th Hokage's wife. These 2 people are now arrested. Danzo's expression changed instantly when he heard this. Arrest me. Hiruzen ordered me to be arrested. Chapter 68. Do people really change? Konoha Hospital. At this time, Danzo was completely stunned. Danzo Shimura, as a disciple of the 2nd Hokage, who was one step away from taking the position of Hokage, was actually ordered to be arrested by the village. Haha, Hiruzen, you really played your cards well. Danzo sneered on his face. After all, he has been in a high position all year round. Danzo soon understood the true intention of the 3rd generation. He was angry that he had become the 3rd generation's pawn and the opponent's stepping stone once again. Haha, the current situation seems to be very bad. Orochimaru's cold voice came. HMPH, it's just a temporary victory or defeat. Sooner or later, Konoha will belong to me. Shimura Danzo. Aha. Aha. At this moment, 2 more figures appeared on the field. It was the 3rd generation and Jiraiya who had just arrived from the Hokage's office. Orochimaru's pupils shrank when he saw the 2 of them, and then he turned around and left quickly without hesitation. Orochimaru. Jiraiya nodded to Naraku with a complicated expression, and then chased after Orochimaru in the direction he left. As expected, it's still like this. Naraku secretly thought in his heart that the friendship between Jiraiya and Orochimaru for many years is difficult to separate, especially for a sentimental person like Jiraiya. It is difficult for him to accept Orochimaru's defection from the village. Kushina. At this time, the 3rd generation asked questions. After looking around and not finding Kushina's figure, soon an Anbu officer came forward to report the situation to him. Myomu Mountain. Sandai nodded slightly, his face expressionless, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Not paying attention to Kakashi and Naraku, the 3rd generation walked directly to Danzo and looked at each other. Hiruzen, you win this time. Danzo's hoarse voice revealed a trace of disappointment. This time, there won't be another time. Looking at his old friend for many years, Sandai felt mixed emotions in his heart. Ugh. After a sigh, the majestic expression appeared on Sandai's face again. Danzo Shimura openly attacked the wife of the 4th Hokage. He is now removed from his position as elder, arrested and imprisoned. All members of the root team under his jurisdiction are now incorporated into the Anbu. The 3rd generation opened his mouth and gave the order. Hiruzen, haha, perhaps because he had too deep feelings for Konoha, or did not want to leave in disgrace. Danzo did not choose to leave the village at this time, but gave up resistance, and was taken away by Anbu. Naraku watched this scene quietly. He knew that it was impossible for Danzo to compromise like this, and it was even more impossible for the 3rd generation to kill him directly. The roots were incorporated into Anbu. This was just a joke. Every member of the roots was controlled by Danzo using a special sealing technique. How could they be incorporated like this? However, after this incident, Sandai's power has undoubtedly increased a lot, at least on the surface. He is basically under his control. Maybe it will be my turn next. Naraku thought to himself. Uchiha Fugaku also had the same idea as him. He knew very well that Danzo was targeting the Uchiha clan on the surface, but the 3rd generation was the biggest instigator behind it. But even though he knew this in his heart, he still didn't have any fear. The Uchiha were a proud clan. How could they be bullied like this all the time? Fugaku took a step forward and said in a deep voice, Lord Hokage, Danzo Shimura has snatched the Sharingan of our clan. Uchiha Shizu, please let him return it immediately. Shizu, Sharingan. The 3rd generation was slightly shocked when he heard this. He squinted his eyes and looked at Danzo's back with a hint of coldness in his eyes. He knew that Shizu had activated the main Jiki Sharingan, and of course he was also aware of the abilities of other gods originally. All he wanted to do was make good use of Shizu and use his eyes to consolidate his power. But what he didn't expect was that Danzo would take action before him. He raised his hand to signal the Anbu who was escorting Danzo to stop, and said slowly, Danzo, please return the Sharingan to Chief Fugaku. The face of Danzo in front was extremely ugly. How could he, a disciple of the 2nd Hokage, be so shameless? He only had one Sharingan, and he didn't know how much he had stolen. Danzo, seeing that Danzo made no move, Sandai spoke again to urge him. Humph, let you be proud for just this moment. Danzo snorted in his heart. Then he reached out and threw a bottle back and then left here with it to Anbu. The third generation reached out and took the bottle, looking at the 3 Magatama Sharingan soaked in green liquid, and then he handed the bottle directly to Fugaku. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Fugaku stretched out his hand to take it. Even though he knew that the third generation was the murderer of their Uchiha, on this occasion, some face-saving measures still had to be done. At this time, Naraku frowned slightly, his eyes stayed on the scarlet eye in the bottle, and he felt something was wrong. In his opinion, now that Danzo has learned about the buggy abilities of other gods, there is no way he would give up so easily. This Sharingan is definitely not Shisu's, he thought to himself. However, he did not remind Fugaku whether the Sharingan belonged to Shisu. He would only need to go back and install it for Shisu to try in a jungle outside Konoha village. The narrow eyes and pale golden pupils were none other than Orochimaru, who had just left Konoha Hospital. The next moment, a tall figure appeared in his sight, and it was Jiraiya who chased after him. Jiraiya, Yuri still here. Looking at the extremely familiar figure in front of him, a trace of recollection rose in Orochimaru's eyes. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, the 3 of them have known each other since they were very young, and the 3 of them have experienced countless wars side by side. Compared to the third generation, Orochimaru and Jiraiya's relationship is undoubtedly more profound. Yes, I'm here. Jiraiya looked extremely lonely at this time. He seemed to have no intention of stopping Orochimaru from leaving. He just sat down cross-legged in front of him, and then took out a scroll from his arms. Boom. A burst of white mist appeared, and then 2 more wine bottles appeared in Jiraiya's hands. Come have a drink with me, Orochimaru. It is good. Facing the invitation of his old friend, Orochimaru did not refuse, and sat cross-legged opposite Jiraiya. Sugarcane. The sound of iron flasks clashing was heard. Gudu. Gudu. After drinking most of the wine in the pot in 2 gulps, Jiraiya wiped the wine stains on his mouth with his sleeves. He raised his head and revealed a pair of slightly confused eyes. Orochimaru, can people really change? Facing Jiraiya, who looked like this now, the cold smile on the corner of Orochimaru's mouth seemed to disappear. He opened his mouth slightly, wanting to say something, but in the end he didn't say a word. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Idiot Jiraiya. Outside Konoha village. Haha, you are always like this. You always don't like to say what's on your mind. The teacher has also changed now. I really don't know if it's because you guys have changed or because I've never seen the world clearly. Jiraiya laughed at himself. And Minato, he is so outstanding and outstanding. Haha, I always thought he was the son of the prophecy. Jiraiya. Looking at Jiraiya, who looked lonely, Orochimaru seemed to have unusual emotions rising in his cold eyes. But the next moment, Orochimaru stood up slowly, and his expression turned cold for a moment. Idiot, Jiraiya, you are just a complete idiot. Orochimaru's slightly mocking voice sounded. Idiot, I'm the only one who's stupid. Jiraiya yelled and stood up. Boom. The wine bottle in his hand was thrown out by him and hit a tree with a loud noise. Orochimaru, have you forgotten Tsunade and the bond between us? At this moment, Jiraiya's heart was extremely painful. Looking at the companion he once cherished the most, there were even faint tears in his eyes. Jiraiya, the toad sage who would not shed tears, even if he was seriously injured, was a little unable to control himself at this moment. Humph, Orochimaru snorted coldly when he saw this, and his eyes dodged, but soon returned to normal again. Haha, when did you really understand me, when you know nothing about me? Orochimaru said nonchalantly. Even the sharpest kunai is not as hurtful as these words. After decades of life and death friendship, countless times of side by side, in the end it was this result. Perhaps because he was drunk, Jiraiya's figure, with his head lowered, swayed slightly. Boom, boom. At this moment, two blue thunder and lightning suddenly appeared in the sky, followed by heavy rain. The rain fell on Jiraiya and wet his white hair. If that's the case, then haha, S-class rebel ninja, Orochimaru. Now I will take you back to the village to accept punishment. Call out. The moment the words fell, a sharp kunai was pressed against Orochimaru's neck. Jiraiya raised his head, the rain wet his face, and water droplets dripped from his face. Come back to the village with me, Orochimaru. Haha, I'll go back to the village with you, Orochimaru sneered, then stretched out his right leg and kicked Jiraiya several meters away. What? An idiot. Do you overestimate yourself, Jiraiya? You seem to want to get involved in everything. What does my defection from the village have to do with you? The teacher has also changed. Do you know what kind of person he is? Just go and write your book if you have nothing to do. Don't mess around with some things. Latent shadow snake hands. Orochimaru flicked his sleeves, and a dozen venomous snakes galloped forward, their sharp fangs flashing with cold light. Ninjutsu, needle jizo. Suddenly Jiraiya shouted, and his long white hair grew rapidly, and then surrounded his body. The white hair stood up like hard steel needles, emitting a sharp cold light. Point. Boom, boom, boom. Those poisonous snakes that hit it all turned into a white mist and dissipated. Point. Then Jiraiya and Orochimaru, the two once most cherished partners, started a fierce battle. Point. Ding. Ding, the sound of kunai colliding was heard, and the battle between shadow level experts began. Boom, boom. At this moment, a few thunders suddenly flashed in the sky, and the rain seemed to be getting heavier. Maybe God is sad for the breakup of these two people. Time passed slowly, and the battle between the two people covered a wide area. It could be seen that the trees around them were basically gone, and a large open space appeared in the dense jungle. Until the end. Orochimaru sneered while covering the wound on his abdomen. After his eyes fell on Jiraiya on the ground, he trembled unnoticeably. At this moment, Orochimaru may have been struggling in his heart, as previous scenes kept flashing through his mind. Ninja Academy, form a team, perform tasks, and participate in the second and third ninja war. Jiraiya, you are really an idiot, Orochimaru murmured, then turned around and left here without hesitation. It was obvious that Orochimaru won the fight between them, although of course he was a little injured. This is not because Jiraiya is not strong enough. On the contrary, if Jiraiya turns on the Sage mode at this time, Orochimaru will definitely not be his opponent. But facing his former friends, how could Jiraiya go all out? Point. In the end, he was stunned by Orochimaru's poison. Point. After a long time, cough, cough. Several weak coughs came, and Jiraiya, who had fainted, slowly woke up. Sure enough, you still lose. Goodbye, Orochimaru. Jiraiya murmured a few words, then dragged his heavy body back towards Konoha Hospital. Point. Shortly after, Danzo was escorted away by the Enbu. Uchiha Fugaku also stood up and left, but gave Naraku a firm look before leaving. There is no doubt that after today's incident, Naraku and Uchiha are completely in the same boat. Not only Uchiha, but anyone with a discerning eye can see that Kakashi is also on one side now. The opponent's action of drawing a sword and fighting Orochimaru just now said everything. Uzumaki Naraku, Kakashi, and Uchiha. A trace of fear flashed in the third generation's eyes. Not to mention that Naraku himself is extremely talented, but he has the strength of a jounin at the age of 7 or 8, and Kakashi is also the best ninja. If these two people are given some time, they will definitely be able to do it in the future. Film level. Point. There is also the Uchiha clan, which has many geniuses, Shisu and Itachi. These two are no worse than Kakashi. The third generation was thinking, if he waits for these people to grow up, will he still be able to hold the position of Hokage? For this answer, Sandai already had the answer in his mind, but he still decided to take a gamble. Of course, this was Sandai's helpless move. Point. Although he knew that Naraku and the others already had a big prejudice against him, it was impossible for the third generation to kill them all. Although doing so can stabilize his position, he will also become completely unavailable, and by then, Konoha will not be far from destruction. The third generation glanced at Naraku and Kakashi with a complicated expression, and then said in a hoarse voice, "Come with me." Afterwards, after leaving a few Anbu to deal with the aftermath, The third generation turned around and left. Let's go, brother K. Naraku greeted Kakashi and then followed the third generation, Naruto. This time. Chapter 70. Today I, Uzumaki Naraku, want to overturn the table. On the edge of Konoha village, the Uchiha clan, which has been marginalized in recent years, was driven here. The Sharingan has been taken back. You can put it on and give it a try. Fugaku said solemnly, looking at Shizu with his left eye wrapped in a bandage point. He then handed Shizu the vial containing the Sharingan. Okay, thank you, Patriarch. Shizu thanked Fugaku, then reached out and took the bottle point for the Uchiha clan. Eye transplantation seems to be a very simple matter and does not require the use of any auxiliary tools. Just like Shizu now, after taking out the Sharingan from the bottle, he opened the bandage covering his left eye and then pressed that eye directly. At this moment, Shizu seemed to have noticed something and his expression changed slightly. What's wrong? Is it the Sharingan that's wrong? Fugaku asked after seeing this. No, the eye is right, Shizu said, and then his left eye, which was originally scarlet, returned to normal. Really? That's best. Fugaku nodded. Okay, Shizu, you should stay in the clan to recuperate and don't go out. Clan leader, me. Zishu heard what he wanted to say. Okay, that's it. Fugaku interrupted him directly. The third generation has ordered Danzo to be imprisoned and the roots to be disbanded, so you currently do not have any position. Come to me after you recover from your injuries. It is good. Hokage's office. Kakashi, you go and lead a team of Anbu to gather all the remaining root personnel. Although they were just obeying orders, they dared to attack Kushina. They must be punished. The third generation said in a cold tone, as if he was really thinking about Kushina. Naraku on the side almost couldn't stand it anymore. After hearing the third generation's order, Kakashi hesitated. He turned to look at Naraku, who was aside, and then glanced at the third generation. The third generation, Master, Naraku and the others have not done anything detrimental to the village, and the teacher has also. Okay, Kakashi, I know what you said. Don't worry. Whether it's Kushina, Naraku, or you are all people who have made countless contributions to the village. The village will not treat you badly, Sandai said. Kakashi didn't say anything after hearing this. He turned around and said hello to Naraku and then left. In a hidden alley near the Hokage building, Kakashi, who had just left the Hokage building, appeared here. Shadow clone technique. Boom. After a burst of white mist appeared, Kakashi disappeared in a flash, and a figure appeared near the Hokage building. It is Kakashi's shadow clone, and it is obvious that he is also full of distrust of the third generation. It's not that Kakashi is unclear about many things, it's just that his character is like this, and he just doesn't want to care about it. Do you really think that he doesn't know how his father Konoha White Fang was forced to die? Now if the third generation wants to take action against Naraku, Kakashi will definitely draw his sword without hesitation. Father, I have found the true path. Hokage's office. Naraku, I'm sorry about Kushina. I really didn't expect that Danzo would do such a thing, Sandane said, his tone full of resentment towards Danzo. The third generation does hate Danzo a little now, but it's not that he hates him for attacking Kushina, but that he doesn't accomplish anything. Neither Kushina nor Naraku has anything wrong at this time. Haha, Sandane-sama, please stop saying useless things. At this time, Naraku no longer had any intention of arguing with Sandane. Now he has only one purpose, and that is to get back his nephew, Uzumaki Naruto. Sandane-sama, if you can return my nephew now, let him get to know my sister, and he can live a normal life in the village in the future. If you can do this, then I can forget any unpleasantness that happened before. I, Naraku Uzumaki, and my sister are still your strongest supporters as the third Hokage. Naraku spoke slowly, sounding as if he was giving in, but his tone gave people a feeling that he could not refuse. After hearing this, the third generation's expression changed instantly, and the amiable face he had put on suddenly turned serious. Hand over Naruto, meet Kushina, and live a normal life in the village. In Sandai's heart, he could not agree to any of these three things, but then he thought of the current situation in the village. Although Danzo's roots were merged into the Anbu by him, it would definitely take some time. In a short period of time, the people in the hands of the third generation would definitely not be enough. The missions the village has received, as well as other countries, that are eyeing Konoha, or require manpower to solve and intimidate. Naruto is Kushina's child, so they can naturally recognize each other. But you also know that now Kushina and Naruto, mother and son, each have half of the 9 tails sealed in their bodies. As Jinchuriki, they must be dangerous beings. Even if the Uzumaki clan's sealing technique can restrain the tailed beasts from going berserk, if someone wants to attack the Jinchuriki, just like when your sister gave birth a few years ago. So for the safety of Kushina and Naruto, they must live in the Sarutobi clan's territory. In order to completely convince Naraku, Sandai said a lot of earnest words. Some of the words he even felt were a bit nonsense, but one sentence was true. He was really afraid that someone would attack the Jinchuriki. He still remembers the tailed beast rebellion a few years ago. He doesn't think he has the strength to turn the tide like the 4th generation, but more importantly, he doesn't have the courage to sacrifice for the village now. Sandaime-sama, you are planning to imprison my sister, just like Naruto now. Don't talk about protecting them, you just want to take the powerful power of the Jinchuriki into your own hands. At this time, Naraku and Sandai completely lost their skin and spoke with a sneer on their faces. Now Kushina has woken up and was sent to Mount Myaboku by him. She is currently safe. More than 2 years, almost 3 years. Naraku has endured it for a long time. But today he didn't want to endure it anymore. He wanted to have a complete showdown with the third generation, Uzumaki. Naraku, what do you mean? Don't think that, because you are the 4th generation's younger brother, I won't dare to do anything to you. Even if the 4th generation was alive, he would not dare to speak to me like this, the 3rd generation said with an angry look on his face. What do you mean? Let me tell you what you mean. Today, I, Uzumaki Naraku, am going to overturn the table. Chapter 71 Extracting 9-tailed chakra. Hokage's office. Naraku stared at the 3rd generation in front of him with a cold face. At this time, he had already prepared for the worst. Hokage is just a position to him. Since the 3rd generation can do it now, others can do it as well. Let alone others. His sister, Uzumaki Kushina, is also qualified to sit in this position. Many people witnessed the tailed beast rebellion a few years ago. It was Kushina and Minato who solved the Kyuubi. During this period, there are still a few people who are qualified to be the Hokage. Jiraiya and Tsunade, they are all people who have made great contributions to the village. If these 2 people are willing, the Hokage position can be easily obtained. At this time, Naraku already had the best candidate in mind. Furious. At this moment, Sandai shouted angrily, and then said with a sneer, Uzumaki Naraku, don't think that you can make trouble in front of me, just because you have some strength. Have you forgotten that Naruto is still in my hands at this time? Hearing Sandai's threatening tone, Naraku had a cold look on his face, and then he took a step forward. His originally dark eyes instantly turned scarlet, with 3 black magatama slowly rotating inside. Sandaime-sama, do you really think you can blackmail me with Naruto? If you really can't meet the conditions I mentioned, then ask the 3rd Hokage to fight. Sharingan. It's true. Sandai slowly looked at Naraku's scarlet eyes. Although he had just received the Enbu report, he was still a little shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. Haha, fight with me. The 3rd generation sneered at this time. To him, Naraku's words were like his own child talking nonsense. The 3rd generation narrowed his eyes slightly, and a majestic momentum burst out of him at the next moment. This powerful momentum slowly pressed down on Naraku. Click. Click. The aura of a shadow level powerhouse. Faced with the pressure of this powerful aura, Naraku did not lower his head, even though his forehead was covered with beads of sweat. You could see that the wooden floor under his feet was slowly cracking. Not enough. Not enough. The existence known as the ninja professor by the world, does it have this little strength? The 3rd generation. There was a look of disdain on Naraku's face, as if his momentum was really weak. Haha. Sandai just sneered, but the next moment a stronger aura rose up in him, pressing towards Naraku. Uzumaki Naraku, maybe your talent is good, but you are still too young after all. Now kneel down and admit your mistake. I can pretend not to hear what I just said. The 3rd generation's cold tone came. Boom. What answered him was Naraku's explosion. Light blue chakra rose up all over Naraku's body. The next moment, the powerful momentum of the third generation was instantly broken. Oh, you think you can challenge a shadow level warrior with your current strength, or maybe your battle with Danzo gave you confidence, Sandai murmured. However, you may have forgotten that, whether it is Danzo or Orochimaru, they are just my defeated generals. After the third generation finished speaking, he formed a mark with one hand, and then a bright light suddenly appeared in the dark room. Naraku's eyes were attracted by this bright light, and then he looked over and saw a blue ball. A child with yellow hair appeared inside. Naruto. Naraku was stunned for a moment and instantly recognized the child's identity. After all, the 6 long beards on his face were quite recognizable. At this time, Naruto seemed to have woken up, and he was crouching in the corner with confused eyes. Squeak. At this moment, the sound of opening the door came. After hearing the sound, the young Naruto's body trembled visibly. However, in the sight of Naraku and the others, Naruto suddenly started to tremble, and they did not hear the sound of the door opening. This is also the shortcoming of the third generation of telescopes. They can only see images, but cannot transmit sounds. What happened? Seeing Naruto's body shaking constantly, Naraku frowned slightly, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. As if to confirm his conjecture, a back figure appeared on the screen of the crystal ball. What is he going to do to Naruto? Naraku yelled directly at the third generation when he saw this. Do. What? Do. I still need to report to you. The third generation sneered, then made a mark with one hand, and then the picture on the crystal ball disappeared. The reason why he showed the picture of Naruto at this time was to warn Naraku that Naruto was still under his control. In fact, the third generation did not want to completely break up with Naraku unless he had to. It was not because he was not strong, but because Naraku had too many people tied up with him now. Apart from anything else, if something happens to Naraku, Kushina will definitely go berserk, and Jiraiya will also completely break with him as a teacher. These are not what Sandai wants to see, so now instead of using force, he wants to use some other means to deal with Naraku, although the means are a bit despicable. Swish, but it was obvious that he was going to be disappointed. At this time, Naraku did not hesitate and used the teleportation technique to leave the Hokage's office. But the third generation's expression suddenly changed, and then he chased directly in the direction Naraku left. Hokage-sama, what is this? Anbu noticed the abnormality and immediately came to the third generation and asked doubtfully, stop. Uzumaki Naraku, the third generation spoke without explaining much, just ordered someone to stop Naraku. Yes, although the Anbu people did not know what happened specifically, they could only obey the Hokage's orders unconditionally. Aha. In an instant, several figures chased in the direction of Naraku, led by the third generation in black attire. Damn. The third generation. Naraku cursed secretly in his heart. Although the third generation was exposed to the telescope technique just now, at the last moment Naraku saw a flash of red energy appear in the screen. That kind of energy Naraku was very familiar. It was very similar to Kushina's tailed beast coat. It's Kyuubi's chakra. Naraku never expected that the third generation would actually do such a thing. He was extracting the chakra of the Kyuubi from Naruto's body. Although he didn't know how they did it, this was something Naraku couldn't bear. Today, he must take Naruto back. Boom. Violent energy exploded throughout the body. The next moment, crack. Blocks of electricity instantly filled his body. Under Naraku's full power, he was like a thunder shadow at this moment, rushing towards the most luxurious area in Konoha, the Sarutobi clan's clan. There was a dazzling scarlet light in his eyes. Even the third generation with cage level strength could not catch up with Naraku for a while. Chapter 72. Leave this to me. Konoha village. Kakashi, who had just arrived at Konoha hospital, seemed to have received some news. His expression changed instantly, and only a trace of hesitation flashed in his exposed right eye, but he soon became firm. Then he left here in a flash. Swish. A figure stood in front of Naraku. It was the third generation wearing a black combat uniform. Uzumaki Naraku, that's it. Came the third generation's cold tone. Naraku ignored this, put his right foot on the ground, turned his body very quickly, and then turned into a thunder shadow again, and ran towards the other side. How stubborn. Seeing Naraku behaving like this, Sandai's face was instantly filled with frost, and then a shuriken was thrown by him, and then he quickly formed seals with his hands. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. Call out, call out, call out. The sound of breaking through the air continued to be heard in the air, and then hundreds of shurikens appeared and stabbed Naraku's back fiercely. Naraku, who noticed the movement behind him, quickly formed seals with his hands, and then shouted lowly, Ninjutsu, Needle Jizo. The red hair grew rapidly, and then turned into a shield to block Naraku's back. As the red hair continued to grow, the shield gradually increased in size, completely blocking Naraku's body. Clang, clang, clang. The next moment, the shuriken hit the shield, making bursts of metal collision sounds. The ninjutsu, Needle Jizo, was a ninjutsu that Jiraiya passed down to him, but now Naraku has slightly improved it, and now his elongated hair can change his shape freely. It's like combining the two ninjutsus of Ranshi no Jutsu and Needle Jizo. Swish. Suddenly, a figure flashed in front of Naraku. It was Sandai Point. Although Naraku blocked the shuriken attack, Sandai seized the opportunity and chased him. Water. Escape. Water Dragon Bullet. This time, Sandai didn't waste any more nonsense, and launched a direct attack on Naraku. Point. I saw the third generation opening his mouth, and spitting out a huge amount of seawater, and then a water dragon with sharp claws formed from water appeared in front of Naraku. Point. Boom. The water dragon rushed towards Naraku with violent power. Fire. Escape. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Facing the powerful water dragon, Naraku did not retreat. After quickly forming seals with his hands, he opened his mouth and spit out a ball of crimson flames. The crimson flame produced a scorching high temperature, and then the flame turned into a huge flame bomb, and rushed forward. Point. Boom. The fire dragon and the flame bomb collided violently, setting off a huge burst of smoke. Point. Aha. 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 At this moment, the Enbu also rushed over, and stood next to the third generation. Now, we're in trouble. Naraku secretly thought to himself that his strength was not as good as the third generation, but now with these Enbu, it would be difficult for him to escape. Swish. Suddenly another figure flashed past, and then stopped next to Naraku. The forehead protector covering his right eye and the familiar black mask showed that the person coming was none other than Kakashi, who had just arrived. Brother K, you are here. Kindness. Kakashi nodded lightly, without any reason. He directly stood on Naraku's side. Leave this to me. As he spoke, Kakashi took a step forward, holding the white short blade across his chest, and his whole body exuded a fierce aura. The Anbu were completely confused when they saw this scene. They felt that there were a lot of things happening in the village today. First, Danzo led the Nibu to collude with Orochimaru to murder the fourth lady, and then Danzo was imprisoned. Now Naraku, Uzumaki and Kakashi, both Anbu, are actually on the opposite side of the third Hokage. They were a little confused about the situation. Kakashi, stand down. At this moment, the third generation spoke in a deep voice, with a stern tone that could not be refused. However, Kakashi didn't seem to hear the third generation's words. His expression remained silent, and his exposed right eye flashed with a sharp edge. I'm going to rescue Naruto first. Naraku, who didn't have time to explain too much, left the place after leaving one sentence. Damn it. Sandai cursed in his heart. Chase. Then, he flashed and was about to chase Naraku in the direction where he left, but the next moment he was blocked by a figure. It was Kakashi. Kakashi, you are looking for death. The third generation was completely angry at this moment, and an invisible aura emanated from him. Under the pressure of this momentum, with Sandai as the center, the air around him fluctuated like a tide. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. At this time, Sandai didn't want to talk nonsense anymore. He opened his mouth and spit out a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 5 meters at this time. The dark sky that had just rained became a fiery red under the reflection of this fireball. Shattered sky. With a low cry, he clenched the short blade with both hands, and then Kakashi swung the sword fiercely. The silver-white blade exuded a sharp cold light, and then a huge fireball broke directly from the middle. Kakashi, holding a short blade, stood in the middle of the fireball, and the light from the sky made his figure very dazzling. Tsukumo, the third generation, murmured that he was also familiar with Kakashi's moves just now. Ugh, no matter how much he said, it turned into a sigh in his heart, and then the third generation once again started a fierce confrontation with Kakashi. The third generation, known as the Ninja Professor, is proficient in a variety of ninjutsu, and even the lowest level of ninjutsu will become very powerful in his hands facing such a person. Kakashi didn't dare to be careless in his heart. However, his purpose was not to defeat the third generation, but to delay time, so he chose to use sword skills to fight with the third generation. Just as a battle broke out between Kakashi and the third generation, the remaining Anbu chased Naraku under the third generation's instructions. It's just that their speed is too slow and far behind Naraku's full power, so they can only see Naraku's back. Naraku here was not blocked by the third generation, and soon he came to the Sarutobi clan's clan point. Naraku rushed in without any hesitation. Stop, this is Hokage-sama. Before the person in charge of the guard could finish speaking, all he could see was Naraku's back. He was stunned for a moment, and then he roared when he realized what was happening. Someone has invaded the Sarutobi clan's territory. Aha, aha. At this moment, the Enbu also came here, and after a slight hesitation, they also rushed in. Naraku on the other side had now arrived in front of a house, which was on the edge of the Sarutobi clan. Suddenly, a masked person walked out of the house. After seeing this person was stunned for a moment, then turned around and ran away without any hesitation. Wow. Suddenly, 3 golden chains were released at the same time, like 3 golden snakes, rushing towards the man. The next moment, the masked man, whose strength only reached the level of a special jounin, was directly restrained by chains. Chapter 73. Zunangzuo, who seems to be pretty good. Konoha Village, the home of the Sarutobi clan. You are people at the roots. Although the root and the Anbu both wore masks, there was still a big difference between the two. Naraku could identify this person's identity at a glance. Looking at the man bound by the golden chain in front of him, Naraku frowned slightly. Danzo would actually send someone to extract the Ninetales chakra. Forget it, let's rescue Naruto first. Naraku shook his head slightly and ignored the man who was bound by the diamond chain. He stepped directly into the house. As soon as he entered, he saw a young figure, but at this time, Naraku only felt an emotion called hatred rising in his heart. Danzo, Sandame, haha, you are so cruel. In his sight, Naruto was lying quietly on the ground at this time, and he could see red blood slowly flowing out of his abdomen. Naraku stepped forward and picked Naruto up from the ground. Then he lifted up Naruto's shirt, revealing a hideous wound. However, due to his special physique and the fact that the Ninetales were sealed in his body, the hideous wound was recovering visibly at this time. But even so, Naraku still felt a surge of anger rising in his heart. Although he and Naruto did not have a true blood relationship, because of Kushina, Naraku regarded her as a true relative from the moment she was born. At this moment, the dearest relative was injured. His scarlet eyes automatically opened, and the 3 black Magatama began to spin at a high speed. What? The next moment, Naraku let out a cry of pain, and a sharp pain came from his eyes. If someone were here, they could see the huge changes in Naraku's eyes at this time. In the red pupils, the original 3 black Magatama had disappeared, replaced by a red hexagonal star-shaped pattern, and the eyes turned black. Of powerful pupil power emanated from his eyes at this moment. Naraku felt an extremely powerful force in his body. This is the main Gekai Sharingan. Naraku murmured, although it is a bit unexpected, I have to say that it came at the right time. Revenge is about to begin. Psychic art. Boom. A cloud of white mist appeared in the room, and then Todian's figure appeared again. Aha, aha. At this moment, several figures stood outside the room. Leave it to you, Todian. You are so troublesome. First Kushina, and now a yellow-haired child came. Todian was completely speechless. Quick, Naraku, who had no time to explain anything, urged him. It's really unlucky to be your psychic beast. Todian, who kept complaining, turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared, along with Naruto. Reverse channeling is so useful. Naraku murmured. Then he stepped out of the room. At this time, there were several figures outside the room surrounding the door. There were Anbu personnel wearing masks and several people wearing jounin vests. They were all members of the Sarutobi clan. Uzumaki Naraku, hand over the Jinchuriki. A middle-aged man with a beard and short hair shouted angrily. His name is Sarutobi Hijin. He is the same generation as Sandai in the Sarutobi clan, and he is responsible for guarding the Sarutobi clan's territory. Hand over the Jinchuriki. Haha, don't you know that the Jinchuriki you are talking about is my nephew? Naraku said with a sneer. He is the 4th generation fire. Call out. Before Naraku finished speaking, a spinning shuriken flew towards him at high speed. Shuriken. Shadow clone jutsu. It was obvious that Sarutobi Hijin was afraid of what Naraku would say, so he couldn't wait to take action. Let's all work together. Don't let him get the Jinchuriki, otherwise the tailed beast will go berserk. Everyone was slightly stunned when they heard this, but after thinking of the terrifying tailed beast, their eyes flashed with a stern look. Art. Fire escape. Oh, fireball. Wind escape. A big breakthrough. Earth escape. Earth dragon bullet. Scorching. Fireballs, strong hurricanes, and destructive mud bombs were all launched towards Naraku in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. A series of violent roars sounded, and the violent fluctuations directly set off a puff of smoke, and Naraku's figure was hidden in the smoke. Call. It's solved. Sarutobi Hijin breathed a sigh of relief. Just when he was about to step forward and enter the house to check on the Jinchuriki, a sudden change occurred. I saw a golden light suddenly appeared in front, and then the golden light became more and more dazzling, and everyone's eyes were slightly narrowed by the stabbing. When they opened their eyes, they were completely shocked by the scene in front of them. Under the dazzling golden light is a giant skeleton with only the upper body, and Naraku's body is hidden within the skeleton, and the scarlet 6-ray pattern in his eyes emits dazzling red light. What's this monster? Looking at this golden skeleton as tall as a small building, fear suddenly arose in everyone's hearts. This is Sunanzuohu. Naraku carefully looked at the golden skeleton surrounding him, and he felt a powerful energy on it. But the next moment, Naraku frowned slightly. He felt that this was not his full strength, maybe because his own chakra amount was very huge, and he could maintain his current state without using much chakra. In that case, let's continue. Naraku murmured. The next moment, a violent and powerful energy appeared on the golden skeleton, and then a shocking scene appeared again. The already tall skeleton rose several meters higher again. The somewhat oozing skeleton seemed to have flesh and blood, and a golden half armor was placed on the golden skeleton. Any monster, please die. At this moment, Sarutobi Hijin roared angrily, and after quickly forming seals with his hands, fire release, the art of dragon fire. Suddenly, a huge fire dragon composed of crimson flames spurted out from his mouth, and the fire dragon swung its body and rushed towards Naraku. Ignorance. Naraku's face was full of disdain. He didn't even raise his head and continued to familiarize himself with the power of Sunanzuohu. Boom. The next moment, the fire dragon hit Sunanzuohu hard, and except for the first sound, there was no movement point. No matter how the crimson flame burns, there will be no damage at all. Boom. Under Naraku's control, the golden arm suddenly lifted up, and then a dazzling golden light appeared, and a golden giant sword could be seen, being held by Sunanzuohu. It seems pretty good. Naraku murmured. What did you say I was just now? A monster? At this moment, Naraku raised his head and looked at Sarutobi Hijin. Sarutobi Hijin was about to explain something. Puff. Suddenly, a golden sword light appeared and fell directly on Sarutobi Hijin. Sunanzuohu. It seems pretty good. Chapter 74. Danzo Shimura. Get out. In the clan of the Sarutobi clan, puff, a burst of scarlet blood spattered, and a hideous wound appeared on the chest of Sarutobi Hijin, who was hit by the golden sword light. Then with a bang, he fell straight to the ground. You actually killed him. A member of the Sarutobi clan pointed at Naraku with a trembling figure, after seeing Sarutobi Hijin fall to the ground. Fire, Hokage-sama, will not let you go. The Hokage you are talking about is the 3rd generation. Don't worry, I will go find him without you having to tell me. Naraku said with a cold face, and then he turned to look at the Anbu personnel. The scarlet 6-ray pattern in his eyes flashed slightly, and the powerful pupil power exploded instantly. Boom. An Anbu fell directly to the ground, and Naraku closed his eyes at this time. It turns out that he is in this clan. Haha, it's really ironic. On the surface, he said he was going to be imprisoned, but behind his back, he was invited here and treated as a guest. As he spoke, Naraku opened his eyes, and a sharp light rose in his eyes. Just now, he used Jinjutsu to read the memory of the Anbu, and learned the news that Danzo, who should have been imprisoned, was now placed in the Sarutobi clan's territory. But this is good, it saves me another trip, Naraku murmured. Then Naraku stepped towards one direction. Under his control, the golden Zunangzuo slowly disappeared, leaving only 2 rows of golden skeletons similar to human ribs covering Naraku's body. Although Naraku does not lack chakra, saving has always been a traditional virtue, not to mention that there are still several tough battles to be fought. Originally, he planned to wait for some things, but now he decided to solve all the troubles at once, which was also an explanation to the awakened Kushina. Who is that person? Why does he have 2 rows of golden ribs on his body? The Sarutobi clan has a large population, and many children in the clan have seen Naraku, and they are very curious. Aha. But the next moment, several figures appeared and took these children away, quickly. Notify Hokage-sama, a slightly older man said in a deep voice. His name is Akira Sarutobi, and he is the highest ranking member of the Sarutobi clan alive. Yes, in an instant, several figures rushed outside. Is the Sarutobi clan really going to? Sarutobi Akira had a bad premonition in his heart. Today, the Sarutobi clan lives in the most luxurious area of Konoha. The clan leader is still the highest leader of Konoha, Hokage. On the surface, he looks extremely beautiful. Even the largest wealthy families in Konoha, the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan, have to show courtesy to their Sarutobi clan. But Sarutobi Akira understands the truth. The reason why the Sarutobi clan is so prosperous is simply because the leader is a Hokage, that is, the 3rd generation. But if something unexpected happens to the 3rd generation, then the situation of the Sarutobi clan will not be good. Isn't the former Senju clan the best proof? Sarutobi Akira thought to himself, we must arrange the escape route for the Sarutobi clan in advance. Naraku on the other side had already arrived in front of a house. After opening Kagura's inner eye, he felt a very familiar atmosphere inside. Shimura. Danzo, get out. Naraku yelled, call out, call out. At this moment, several rapidly rotating shurikens broke out of the window and flew towards Naraku at great speed. The invisible wind blade above the shuriken was constantly tearing the air. It's really you. In Konoha, Danzo is the only person who can add wind-type chakra to shurikens at this moment. The golden light on Naraku's body surged again, and the golden ribs grew instantly, turning into a golden skull more than 5 meters high to cover Naraku's body. Ding. Ding, the shuriken landed on the golden skull and made a crisp metal collision sound. But the next moment the golden skull just shook its arm slightly, and a violent energy burst out instantly, and all the shuriken were bounced back. Call out, call out. The shuriken rushed towards the room at high speed along the window. Swish. The next moment a familiar figure appeared, with a unique white bandage. It was none other than the root leader Shimura Danzo, who was ordered to be imprisoned in public by the 3rd generation. This is? Looking at the tall golden skeleton in front of him, Danzo was stunned for a moment. But after all, Danzo had experienced several great ninja wars and had seen countless strong men, so his expression quickly returned to normal. Having the same eyes as Shizu, this is the power of the main Gekkai Sharingan. Danzo murmured after noticing Naraku's distinctive pair of scarlet eyes. The Uchiha clan, haha, I will destroy you sooner or later. Boom. Naraku here didn't have time to let him fantasize too much here. Chakra and eye power exploded again. In an instant, the golden skull grew wildly again. The dazzling golden light flashed, and the next moment Susan in the 2nd form appeared in front of everyone. Under Naraku's control, Susanoo, who was holding the long sword, exerted force, and a golden sword light shot out, slashing towards Danzo. Danzo's expression changed instantly when he saw this, and without much thought, he quickly formed seals with his hands. Would escape. Violent gun tree. After a low shout, Danzo stretched his right arm forward, and a huge tree surged out from his right arm, turning into a big tree, and blocking Danzo in front of him. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the golden sword light slammed into the tree trunk. Click. Click. Even though the big tree had extremely high defensive power, it only blocked the golden sword light for a moment. Countless pieces of wood flew away in all directions, and the golden sword light dimmed, but it still continued to attack with undiminished power. He slashed at Danzo. How can this be? At this moment, Danzo had an expression of disbelief on his face. Although the explosive spear tree was not strong, it was the wood release ninjutsu after all. How could it be so vulnerable? Wind attribute chakra exploded instantly, and Danzo kicked his feet to the ground and retreated backwards at high speed. But no matter how fast he is, how can he be faster than the sword light? Boom. The golden sword light fell on Danzo, but the next moment his body turned into a burst of white mist. It was avoided. Naraku murmured, but can you still have such good luck this time? Then he turned his head sharply, and Danzo's abominable face appeared in his sight again. At this time, he was standing on a big tree. Boom. The golden Susanoo swung his sword, and another golden sword light struck out. Kai. The sword light tore through the air and rushed towards Danzo at extremely high speed. Danzo, who had already seen the power of the golden sword light, changed his expression at this moment. Light blue chakra instantly covered his legs, and he hid to the side very quickly. You can hide it. Without giving him another chance, Naraku controlled the golden Susanoo and instantly swung out several rays of sword light. Kai. 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 The sound of breaking through the air continued to be heard, and the golden sword light completely enveloped Danzo's figure. Chapter 75 Final Instructions. Boom. 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 A series of strong explosions sounded, and Danzo's figure was submerged in the golden sword light. Elder Danzo, Sarutobi Akira, who was hiding in the Anbu, was shocked when he saw this scene. Danzo was actually killed. For a moment, Sarutobi Akira found it difficult to accept. In his impression, Danzo was a powerful ninja second only to the third generation. How could he be killed like this? Compared to his shock, Naraku was quite calm at this time, and he knew the details of Danzo very well. With so many Sharingan transplanted on his arm, Danzo is not so easy to kill now. As he expected, after the explosion, a figure appeared in the smoke. The golden Susan raised his arm and fanned slightly, and a fierce gust of wind appeared. Then the smoke dissipated, and the figure became clear. It was Danzo, and he was completely intact at this time, without a single scratch on his body. Ikinaxi. It is indeed a very magical ninjutsu. Naraku exclaimed in admiration. Now, there's one. Then, go ahead. Boom. Rays of golden sword light burst out again. At this moment, Naraku began to explode with all his strength, and the dazzling golden light appeared in everyone's eyes. Damn it, Danzo cursed secretly, his already ugly face becoming even more gloomy at this moment. Naraku may not be clear at this point, but Danzo actually doesn't have many Sharingan masters now. Because the Uchiha clan has not been exterminated, he cannot blatantly collect Sharingan, so far he only has 6 Sharingan. However, because one was given to Fugaku, and Ikinaxi was used just once, there was one missing. In other words, excluding Shisu Sharingan, Danzo can only use Ikinashi 4 times at most. But now he had no better solution when facing this powerful golden light, and Danzo fell into passivity for a while. Wind. Escape. Vacuum Lion-Iu. Danzo opened his mouth and spit out a series of wind blades. Boom. 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 There was a fierce collision between the wind blade and the sword light, and a strong explosion sounded the next moment. The impact of the explosion kicked up a plume of smoke. Naraku's scalded eyes looked forward, and this bit of smoke seemed like nothing to him. Although he suppressed Danzo with Susanoo at this time, Naraku was not arrogant. He very much doubted that Shizuzai was still in the opponent's hand, so he did not dare to be careless at all. In the smoke, Danzo was hit by the golden sword light again, and a bright red color appeared at the corner of his mouth. Go on, Elder Danzo. Kai, Kai, Kai. The sword light shot out one after another, tearing the air and rushing towards Danzo in the smoke. Noticing this scene, Danzo's pupils shrank, and without any hesitation, he once again activated the strange energy in his body. Rumble. Several explosion sounds were heard again on the field, and a larger puff of smoke appeared. Sure enough, it happened again. Naraku murmured, and then without any hesitation, Golden Susan took action again. Ha. Ha. Kakashi gasped for air, and the hand holding the short blade couldn't stop shaking. You can see red blood dripping from the short blade, but it is not the enemy's blood, but Kakashi's own. It can be seen that there is a hideous wound on the arm, where he is holding the short blade, and red blood is slowly flowing out from there. That's enough, Kakashi. You are no match for me now. Sanday's hoarse voice came again. Looking at Kakashi in front of him, the third generation was still full of shock. Although he had defeated him just now, the third generation knew very well that he only had an advantage in age point as he is old. His strength is getting worse year by year, and he is in a stage of continuous decline. But Kakashi is different. He is now in his youth, which is the explosive period of growth in strength point within 1 year, 2 years, or at most 3 years. His strength will definitely surpass his own. Looking at Kakashi in front of him, the third generation began to hesitate. He was wondering whether letting go and handing over the village to the next generation would be the best decision. Let go. Ugh. The last 3 generations sighed. It's too late. Naraku must have discovered the root's extraction of tail beast chakra from Naruto by now. Even if he wanted to reconcile now, it would probably be too late. Swish. At this moment, several figures appeared in front of Sunday. Hokage-sama, Uzumaki Naraku broke into our clan's territory, kidnapped the Jinchuriki, and then killed Sarutobi Higan. The people who came were none other than those people sent by Akira Sarutobi to call the third generation point. The third generation's expression changed instantly when he heard this. It was not that he cared much about Sarutobi Higan, but that he knew that he and Uzumaki Naraku were now completely at odds. Not only that, after Naraku Uzumaki killed Higan Sarutobi, he also found elder Danzo and wanted to kill him too. The man spoke and continued. Danzo. Kakashi in front frowned slightly after hearing Danzo's name. But at this time, the third generation couldn't care about that much anymore. He turned his head and glanced at Kakashi. After hesitating for a long time, he took out a scroll and threw it over. Then he took those people and left here. Point looking at the scroll flying towards him. A trace of doubt flashed in Kakashi's eyes. He didn't feel anything unusual about it. After reaching out to take it, he opened the scroll. An incredible expression appeared on Kakashi's face. Point swish. At this moment, a tall figure appeared next to Kakashi. Point with long white hair and oil paint on his face. He was none other than Jiraiya, who had returned from outside the village. Kakashi. Looking at Kakashi, who was stunned in front of him, Jiraiya shouted. Kakashi raised his head when he heard the voice. After seeing the person clearly, he shouted respectfully, Jiraiya-sama. Then he handed the scroll over, and the first thing written on the scroll was for him to transfer the scroll to Jiraiya. Kindness. Jiraiya frowned slightly, then reached out to take it. After seeing the content on the scroll clearly, he showed the same expression as Kakashi. Teacher, this is your last instruction. After a long time, he put away the scroll and then disappeared here in a flash. Kakashi was stunned for a moment, then turned around and rushed in the direction where the Sandaime and the others left. Mount Maomu. Well, a painful murmur came. Naraku, you have really grown up. You actually dare to use illusions on your sister. Kushina rubbed her aching head and opened her eyes. This is looking at the unfamiliar environment around her. Kushina frowned. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.